Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 164. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge on the comics forums, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim. My name is the Sensei, and I'm known for visiting the Vegas Strip. What you might not know is what else I do on my trip. I like to get dolled up in sequins and join the other prancers. On stage, you'll often catch me singing as the Sensei of the Whatnot and the Bulleteer Dancers. So says the Sensei of the Whatnot Segulent. It's been a while.
How's it going, eh?
On this episode, Jim and I are going to kick off our first of a three-part segment on Long Halloween, which we're going to be doing bi-weekly, or bi-episode, as we should this, because it's not going to be quite bi-weekly.
Yeah.
We have all kinds of plans. Jim and I had a Raging Bullets summit trying to figure out how we're going to handle all the summer content that we want to get in. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Jim, our sponsors for this episode are DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com, where you can get Adventure Comics #1 at a special discount. It's a limit 2 per customer. They're regularly $3.99, 75% off, only 99 cents. Written by Jeff Johns, art by Francis Manapul, co-feature art by Clayton Henry, and covers by Francis Manapul. It's the return of one of DC's longest-running books and one of its greatest modern-day heroes, Connor Kent. In our first historic issue, Superboy can't wait to jump back into his life, but which life will it be? With a clarity he's never had before, Connor makes a beeline for the greatest place on Earth, Smallville. Plus, in the wake of Final Crisis Legion of Three Worlds, Starman heads off on an all-new mission in the present. And it's one that will not only impact Superboy, but the future of the DC Universe itself. Fortunately, the off-kilter Legionnaire won't be alone. It's going to be having Lex Luthor, Brainiac, Lightning Lad, Superboy's pal Simple Simon, Sunboy, Polar Boy, Ultra, the Multi-Alien, Wonder Girl, Black Lantern Alexander Luthor, and many, many more new and familiar faces. Black Lantern Alexander Luthor.
What? Whoa!
Wow. This is a 40-page book, and it's, like I said, it's regularly $3.99, 75% off, only 99 cents. I was on board this anyway, just because it's Connor Kent.
Yeah.
And Starman I'm loving anyway, so this is going to be a book. To get it for 99 cents, I'm on board. The variant's available for collectors of that for $8. It not only does have a variant cover, but it also is numbered 504 after the original numbering.
Right.
So that's kind of cool. Chosen by our own Mandy, a.k.a. Super Mandy from the forums, an offer of Life in the Gutter. Absolute Superman for Tomorrow is going to be our next book. We're going to be recording that at the end of June and airing it at the beginning of July. It's Superman 204 to 215. After a cataclysmic event that has struck the Earth, millions of people have vanished without a trace. No one is left unaffected, not even Superman. Now the Man of Steel must face the mystery of how millions of people vanished without a trace, only to find that he may be responsible. But the solution leads to a royal rumble with Wonder Woman, and after a battle with the deadly Equus, Superman comes face to face with the villain who's been responsible for turning his life upside down. And if you want to get the Absolute Edition, it's $75 regularly. They're giving us a special discount of 47% off, only $39.75. And they also are giving us the option for the 2 trade paperbacks. Each one is $14.99 regularly. They're giving us the same 47% off discount, $7.94 per trade, which means it's almost like 2 for 1 for the trades.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's really great that In Stock Trades is continuing to support us.
That is really groovy of them.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that we get our stuff from them because they're really cool people.
But they were kind enough to give us 2 options because I said, some of our listeners might want to jump on that Absolute if they're Jim Lee fans and they want to, get that artwork in the oversized. But some of our listeners might want to do it on a budget, and they were kind enough to offer the 47% off discount on both. So very cool. If you haven't read this, it's a great way to pick it up in either format. But that's InStockTrades.com and DCBService.com. So definitely check out those websites. Ragingcontest@gmail.com. If you'd like a shot at choosing and joining us for the next segment, we already have new entries from Mark and Mike for Where's What Not Now. We have a whole bunch of stuff coming on there. We have a new article from David. We have a new Life in the Gutter from Super Mandy. Lots of listener participation over the last week or so. So check out the website to see what listeners are doing. We love that you guys are participating. So very cool stuff. Jim, what kind of a podcast are we?
Well, Sean, we are a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're reviewing. So if we're going over something you haven't read, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
It hasn't been that long.
I started to say a spoiler show, spoiler podcast in the same breath. And I'm like, blah, blah. We're a spoiler blah.
I like that, actually. We're a spoiler blah. Sometimes it may sound like that. Well, seeing as we're a spoiler blah, Jim, why don't we, without further ado, jump right into Long Halloween.
Carter Hall, scientific genius from a far-off world, flies into action as Hawkman.
I like that sound effect. Anyway, Jim, we are going to be kicking off with Absolute The Long Halloween, or just The Long Halloween, depending on which version you chose. The writer is Jeff Loeb. The artist is Tim Sale. Colors by Gregory Wright. Letters by Richard Starkings and Comiccraft. Chuck Kim is the assistant editor. Archie Goodwin was the editor. And, woo, I actually started rereading this again because it's been so long. We've been planning this one. And one of the reasons why we're you and I have been talking about reformatting things behind the scenes is to try and make sure we get some of these things in a little sooner. And this is a book. Woo.
Yeah.
Now, this was your first, as we started doing this.
Here's my overall experience with Long Halloween. And it actually begins before there was even a thought of Raging Bullets. You had got me the trade for Christmas. I think it was for Christmas. You're like, hey, you got to read this Bat story. You're going to love it. And this was before I was back into comics. But you knew me and knew I liked the genre and all that stuff. So I got it. I was like, oh, that's nice. And I put it on the shelf and it promptly started just gathering dust. And I didn't even pick it up or read it. Yeah, I'm a bad friend. I didn't read the gift you gave me. So then we got back into I got back into comics, the show and all that, but I was too busy reading stuff for the show that I couldn't, grab it off the shelf.
Right. It is hard to get to trades, right?
It was on my stack of my massive stack I have of trades that I still have to read some stuff from it. But so then we announced.
Is it a leaning tower?
Oh yeah, it's actually kind of a tribute to the World Trade Center now. It's double towered and it's massive monument in my room. So. So we
bizarre reference.
I know. Hey, bizarre reference. This show. Wow, what a surprise!
Oh, I got a few in Long Halloween, so
do I. So I was sitting there, and we finally announced we're going to read it for we're going to do it for the show. So I'm like, oh, cool. So I get it. I dust it off, and it was about 1:00 in the morning.
Wait, was there actually dust on it?
Yes, there was actually dust on it. Dude, that was sitting for multiple years,
right.
And I don't clean my room that much. So, so I cleaned it off, and it was like 1:00 in the morning.
Wait, I've got these images of like an old hoagie on it.
No, just dust. Just dust. I don't, hey, I don't waste food like that. Come on. If I eat, I eat.
Okay, all right.
There's a sacredness of the food. Come on.
All right.
Especially something like a hoagie. Jeez.
What was I thinking?
I know. Come on. But, so I started reading this at 1:00 in the morning, and I promptly fell asleep. I could not stay awake, so I was like, and I'm falling asleep. I'm like, oh, man, this is just going to be just a wonderful show. I'm thinking to myself as I go to bed, how the heck am I going to talk about this, and all that? Well, I go to sleep. The next day I wake up, and I was bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and actually, cognate, and I started reading this thing, and I couldn't put it down. I read it start to finish, one sitting. After I got done with it, I put it down, went to my computer, and I ordered the Absolute. Just because I was like, I have to have this in Absolute. So not only...
So you liked it that much for that reason?
Oh, my God. I tell you, and then when I got the Absolute, I reread it again in that Absolute, and the first time reading it through, it was like I reread it all over again. This was a title that is, it was perfect for Absolute. You need that expanded out. You needed that, broader, just that, the larger print. It's the way it's supposed to be, way they were actually creating it, because there are a couple scenes that kind of got crunched down when it going down to the trading, I'm sure going down to the floppy even, that, it would still look cool, but...
Well, the trade and the floppy are the same size.
Right, I know. That's what I'm saying. Well, there are people who...
I'm saying the way you said that, going down to the trade and going down to the floppy even.
Well, it's the same thing. Well, there are some people who've only read this in trade. There's some who've only read it in floppy.
I know,
so I'm addressing both of them.
You are
I'm trying to keep everyone in the picture here. Everyone in the show,
I like it.
Me,
yeah, You're all inclusive.
I know.
I like that about you. Yeah. You're like the little soap that you get in the bathroom at a hotel.
The sensei of Holiday Inn. Hey.
Speaking of that, have you seen What Not Ben and Jerry's on the Where's What Not Now?
No, I haven't yet.
Oh, you haven't been checking up on the site, have you?
No, I haven't.
Mike Sims is back.
Yes.
There's one actually on me on my top of the stack too. So if any of you haven't checked out the Where's What Not Nows, do it. There's some really funny ones up there.
Cool.
Mark, our buddy Mark from Chicago, he made one kind of making fun of my loose usage of top of the stack. But I digress. Anyway, back to your experience with Long Halloween.
Well, I was pretty much at the
You
end.
were all inclusive. That was it.
Yeah, that was pretty much the ending of it.
Right.
This is the title though. It's the artwork is actually. This is one of the reasons I'm glad we have absolutes. So if you didn't get the absolute, you got a great chance to pick it up. I highly, highly recommend it. It just reads absolutely beautifully in the absolute format.
For anyone who's not familiar with Tim Sale and you're watching Heroes, he's the artist that does all of the artwork on Heroes. So, especially when they do some of those sequences where they go into
dream mode and psychic
and stuff
mode,
like that.
and they're painting the future. Isaac did it now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A couple of heroes are doing it now.
A couple people can do it now, and I don't want to start throwing out names, and just in case people, I haven't seen it, because we're not doing a spoiler on Heroes. So
right.
There's other people who can now paint the future.
Yeah. I remember looking at the cover, and it was the first time Tim Sale's art really grabbed me with its film noir style. When it came to Batman, because this book, I read it monthly when it first came out, and I was like, woo, this guy's really good. It was very fitting for a Year One era story. I love the shot of Batman and how the cape is used as the background for the other characters. I made a promise to my parents that I would rid the city of evil that took their lives. It's an important thing that kind of defines the character that was appearing in this book, and I really liked that. Chapter 1, Crime, that we're going to jump right into, it starts off with, I believe in Gotham City. Yeah, very Godfather.
Dude. First time reading, I was like, oh my god, they took a scene from The Godfather. Mm-hmm. I was just like, this is outstanding. And that was just the initial grab, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is going to be a cool mob story.
The belief concept in not only Gotham, but in its potential and the potential of its people becomes like this bookending concept that I think is pretty critical to why the story is so cool. It serves to not only show the moral code of certain beliefs, but also what drives the various characters in the book. Belief systems often drive motivations, good and bad, and we see this throughout. So it's this, I believe in Harvey Dent, I believe in Jim Gordon, I believe in, it's this constantly pops up over and over again for various reasons, and I really liked that. As we scan the wedding sequence, it reminds me a lot of Godfather, and one thing I really appreciated about it, every character presented played a role in the story. It's a nice thing about having this 13-plus issue arc, and I say plus because the two bookends really are like two books in one, to tell this story in. We get our first glimpse into power. Carmine Falcone financed the wedding to gain the silence of his nephew. Okay, debate time, Jim. You know something about a mob boss that can take you to the grand jury. You know it can bring him down. Are you squealing? Why or why not?
Me personally?
Yes, you.
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why?
Because I couldn't, live with myself knowing that I could take him down and I didn't.
Okay.
It's the fact of if I had the power to take someone down, I would. It's my,
in spite of the risk.
It's what I do. It's who I am. It's now the.
And I'd like to say I could do that.
Yeah.
I'm being honest. I don't know in this particular situation with how powerful Falcone is. If I'm married, so I don't just have to make the decision for me. I have to make the decision for my wife as well. So that becomes a huge factor in it.
And, of course, I'm saying this knowing the fact that, really this guy was basically just given money and power. He wasn't really, who knows what was used. Like you say, your wife, the first thing they go after is they go after your family. They go after where it's going to hurt you. Someone threatens me, that's not going to hurt me. Yeah, physically I may be in pain, but that's something I can deal with.
Yeah, see, I'm not worried about that. I'm
really
going
not. After the
my
family.
First honest thought is my wife, because that's where they would aim. Right.
Oh, yeah, and they'll go after where it would hurt you. Like, if they were to go after my folks... that really wouldn't, really affect me as much. And here's why. Before people say, you know what, I love my parents, but I know my parents. My dad's answer would be, you don't get, if they get me, you avenge me, and you take those sons of bitches down. And Mom's answer would be, hey, they kill me, I'm dead. Okay, don't worry about it. You take them down. I know my parents, that they would want me not to sit down. See, then you're in
this, like, cool Unforgiven-like movie. That's your
right.
life now? And that's,
basically.
Yeah, so that's cool.
Yeah, that's
so, see, that sounds attractive to me. But see, with my wife, I don't think it would go that way.
Right. Yeah. But it's...
she's not going to say, yeah, let him, take him down and avenge me. She's not going to do that.
Well,
and not that my wife isn't heroic or anything, but
yeah. Well, also, you look at your wife's, still at the beginning of her life. My parents aren't.
Right.
Yeah, so there's a whole thing there as well. But it's, you think about going through friends, family, little children. I got nieces and nephews. Mm-hmm. If someone were to show me a picture of one of my nephews and say, hey, do you really want to talk? That would give me pause.
Right.
There is ways to get to everybody. There's everybody has a weakness. But with this one, it was just pure money, pure greed.
Right.
And I was like, that. No.
And see, I honestly, would like to think, it's hard because you're not actually in that situation. I would like to think, though, I would say no to that. It would be more, my wife would be the one.
Yeah, that's the tough one.
That would be the Achilles heel.
That's the tough one. Everyone's got a weakness.
All right, now take it to the next level. He's your uncle, financing your wedding. Do you think you can ever turn your back in that world? Like, would you ever feel safe after doing this?
No, because in that world, it's your best friend that's going to kill you.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And you won't see it coming until the final moment it happens. That's that life. That's the life they have chosen to live.
Completely unattractive to me.
Yeah, I love the mob movies. I love mob stories are great, but there's no way I would ever want to get involved with that. Back in the day when there was an actual Cleveland Mafia, this was when my grandparents were, down in the Little Italy section. Mm-hmm. And, my grandpa always says, you always told always told my mom, sister, my aunts, her sisters, and whatnot, you never go to them for a favor.
Was it To Kill an Irishman? Was that the name of the book? Or
yeah, or something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
Cleveland had a very powerful Italian mafia here, and they also had a nice Irish mafia and a Jewish mafia. Really strong presence in the Cleveland area. And, and the street corners, you knew who to go to. If you ever had a problem, you go to that person. Well, my grandpa's like, no, you never go to those people, because once you're in for life.
Right.
And there was a lot of interesting debates, because my grandma's side of the family was Sicilian, and my grandfather's side is Italian. So the Sicilian side was a little bit more lenient and understanding towards the mob. Whereas Grandpa was like, no, he had a hard line. You have nothing to do with them.
Richard Daniels noted for the first time, and he becomes a player later in the issue. But it shows that Falcone has a majority of the high-power players of Gotham in his pocket, including the bank manager. I really liked that Batman Begins pulled so much from this, because it was throughout the story. I'm like, oh, I can see they were influenced by that. And actually, in the Absolute, there is a discussion between the writer and the director about what they pulled from this particular book. So that's an interesting reason when you read the Absolute. If you skipped over that intro, it's well worth reading to see how much they drew from this. But there's certain sequences in this that you can literally see how they brought it to life on screen. And there's ones that we'll talk about later that I thought were really cool.
Yeah, that's one of the things I think why I loved Batman Begins so much, was because it did feel like a comic. It did feel like the true Batman, and you're seeing the source work here. Right. And I love,
and Dark Knight too.
Yeah, and Dark Knight.
Right.
Dark Knight big time pulled some stuff from here. So I was just like, man, this is a cool thing here.
Bruce refuses to play ball with Falcone, and Falcone assumes that this is no big issue because of having Daniel and most of the board in his pocket. Little does he know he's actually dealing with Batman. And Bruce has his first run-in with Alberto, a.k.a. Pee Wee Herman Falcone.
The good son.
Yeah. Tell me he doesn't look a little bit like Paul Rubens, though.
Yes, yeah.
Did you ever watch Pee Wee's Playhouse?
Yes, I did. I watched it.
Now, if Alberto's Pee Wee, does that make Carmine like the king of cartoons, and Milos is Cowboy Curtis? Alberto's aunt is like Cherry? And perhaps Johnny is Globy? The word of the day is holiday. Ah! I have issues.
Man, you know what?
I did that when I looked at the art. I'm like, boy, he really looks like Paul Rubens.
You say it now, and I say, yeah, I can see it, but that never even remotely entered my mind.
It's either Paul Rubens and Johnny Depp mixed, maybe. in a very twisted way, and a little Ichabod Crane.
See, I would say more Ichabod Crane.
Yeah, there's definitely an Ichabod Crane in there as well. Yeah, the Headless Horseman of the DC Universe. Beware the Quiet Ones certainly applies to Alberto, and I love that we see he is basically ignored by his father. He's the good son, a la Michael Corleone, but there's like a creepiness to him in these early sequences that is really apparent right from the get-go. When you first see him with Bruce, and then you see him in the room, you want to watch yourself around this guy. Tim Sale draws a very sexy Selina Kyle, and one thing that really worked here is that Bruce is very likable. Again, you can see why people would put up with his playboy behavior. Eccentric, yes, but a likable guy. As a reader, a good writer remembers to give us a glimpse into his head. Those human moments where he really enjoys being with Selina reminds us that the cat and mouse game between the two lovers works because there's a genuine sexual tension between the two. I really liked that.
I tell you, this was something when I seeing her in there, I was like, I wish the movies had actually brought in Selina, in Batman Begins, and not even just have her in there. You don't use her as Catwoman, you use her as Selina Kyle, and then maybe you'll see a newspaper clippings that show a robbery somewhere, and you see Selina interacting with Bruce, but not, Catwoman. Just have the character there, so it's like a little Easter egg for those who read the comic, who was like, oh, that's gonna be Catwoman, cool, and you waited for a couple movies and you play it out, kind of like they did with the Joker card at the end.
Let me tell you why I'd rather see that now. Well, they did hint at the cat in the second movie, in that, like, throw off by, what was it, Lucius, I think, threw that out there. No. Well, yeah, it was Lucius with the suit, right? The new Nomex suit. You gotta watch out for cats.
Yeah.
Or we can block cats. But I think the problem is with the tension between Rachel Dawes and Bruce, if you had Selina in there, it would have taken away from that relationship. So I'm glad they didn't do it yet, but like you said, if they aren't going to use her as the main villain, let's say, in the next one, it would be interesting to introduce her as somebody he ran into. I like your idea.
Yeah.
Running into her at a social gathering. I don't think you could have done it in the first two films, though, without taking away with Rachel. Because you really needed to believe that his heart was totally with Rachel. Now that's a non-issue. So, but I like what you're thinking, though. When she talks about the temperature, I also like how she talks about this wedding like it's the social event of the decade. This fits something on this financial level. This would be something the media would grab. And I also like that their presence is something that would draw attention, as Carla and Johnny are both looking at them like, who is that? And, that's Bruce Wayne. And
want me to go make him talk to you? I love that line. I was like, yeah, that's the good son saying, you want me to take care of this, Ma? Bring him over here.
He'll talk to you.
He has no choice.
He'll notice you. Alberto is basically ignored by his father when it comes to business matters. This is important because I understand why Carmine is doing this, but he doesn't realize that a son needs his father's approval. I think we all go through this stage when we come into our own. What does that denial do to Alberto? The real Pee-wee went to dark movie theaters after denial like this. Well, we'll discuss what happens later on with Alberto later in this issue. He is somebody, though. And actually, it's as this storyline progresses, he's a very interesting and complex character that you want to pay attention to. If you didn't reread this book, it's one I highly recommend after you know where the whole story's gone, going back through and rereading the whole thing, and you'll see how brilliantly this is all laid out.
And just some clues in the artwork, that they do, even from the very beginning, with where this is going, was just like, oh, wow, I can't believe I missed that the first time. I'm an idiot.
It's a great mystery story. That's what I really enjoy about this. Setting the stage that Carmine still runs Gotham, Dent is fighting a personal war against Falcone, writing down license plate numbers, trying to build a case of corruption. I like that this story developed him as a rebel and an overall good guy in the early parts of the story. He is driven to rid this city of corruption. It's great that we have to wonder throughout just how driven he is. Where is that going to take him? What lines would he cross? Like any good mystery, it works best with multiple suspects. The threats to his wife, the beating, and more lead us to wonder about him from the start. He's not the only suspect, but I liked this story development because I remember reading this the first time through and being like, Is he one of the people in on it? What's going on? And I like that throughout that you see why people would point the finger at him, why people would point the finger at Gordon, why people would point the finger at Alberto, Carla, everybody else in this story that gets accused of being Holiday on some level. Ding, 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 ding.
Okay. We won't do that throughout the entire episode, I promise. Somebody's like, oh, God, they're going to do that every single time.
I did consider it.
One of the things that, I was talking about the artwork and just how much I love, like, simple scene like the beatdown of Harvey Dent.
Yeah.
It's spread out. It's like the partial panels. It just, goes through the flow through as he's gotten stomped on. Then you see Bruce and Selina show up there to try to pick him up, dust him off. And it just, the way this, on this page here, I was just like, damn, that looks it's a simple page. It's not like a complex fight sequence and splash, but it was just the artistic nature of this one little page here.
And even use of panels.
Oh, yeah.
Because the panels themselves, they don't follow your traditional panel format. They're moved and shaped and overlapped over each other in ways that make sense for the type of scene that it is. I like that he really just had some fun playing around with what a page can do. There's those white areas of the page are there for a reason, because it adds and builds to the whole drama. And I got to compliment colorist Gregory Wright, because this story sets a very dark film noir tone that I'm sure that the original pencil work did, but he made sure that was not lost. And the choices of when to use rich, vibrant colors versus when to keep things dull and a little bit more Gotham-like and classic film-like were really well chosen. And it really, there was moments where he brought in bangs of color and big smashes of color as a dramatic tool that worked because they only used them sparingly. So it was a good marriage of pencil and inking work and color as well. So got to give compliments to the colorist on this one as well.
Oh yeah, amen on that.
Again, Harvey and his view on society types were brought into Dark Knight. He sees power people like Bruce Wayne and those attending the party as either in the pockets of Falcone, not caring because they are selfish or only concerned with themselves, maybe perhaps even being a little inept into the ways of the world, or just turning a plain blind eye. So it was interesting with his reactions with Bruce that it was clear that they get along on some level, but also that he doesn't think Bruce is very capable of much of anything.
Yeah.
And Gotham's class system added to the reality of this story for me, because that's really the way the world is, and that worked. I believe in Harvey Dent, though. Bruce here, this isn't Bruce Wayne only. This is Batman as well. And the relationship and the comments with him and Selina Kyle, he talks about Harvey Dent in a way that shows the real person. Like, there's the Bruce Wayne fake persona, there's the Batman persona. This moment right here, this is true marriage of Bruce and Batman when he's talking about Harvey Dent. Because that's the real man. Those are his real feelings and the mask has dropped for that brief moment right there.
And we see that also in Dark Knight, in the sequences where Bruce is backing Harvey and Bruce is talking. You see the real Bruce Wayne there, and it's cool when you get those moments in a Batman title where there are no gruff voices, there are no hey, I'm a playboy, yeah, kind of. It's the real guy behind this, and it's moments that you normally only see with him one-on-one with Alfred. Right. Or sometimes him one-on-one, with Dick or Tim. We see that type of, kind of real person. But right here we're seeing outside, and I like that. And it fits for year one because he only has Alfred, really, as his confidant. So here he's with Selina, and he kind of lets his guard down because there are legitimate feelings there. So when you get that legitimate feelings with someone, you sometimes are going to let your guard down around them. But they both quickly cover up, because they both have plans. He's got bat plans, she's got cat plans. But it was a nice, just seeing even them together, just brief moment, was a nice time because they both had their guard down. And I was Absolutely. Just like, I ate that up with just the interaction, just so on so many levels. You got him with Harvey, with Selina, it's like, that's a cool thing. And just span of a couple pages to catch that.
I agree with everyone's argument that Batman is the real person. But I think there's the theatrical Batman and the theatrical Bruce Wayne that are both fake. You know, he goes over the top with Batman at times to put fear into criminals. He goes over the top with Bruce Wayne at times to keep the mask up, to keep the illusion up. But there are those moments where both of those theatrics are dropped and we see the real man. And it doesn't matter whether he's in costume or not. That's the real Bruce Wayne. That's the real Batman, however you want to term it.
Whether he's wearing the cape and cowl or not, there is a real Bruce Wayne who is Batman. But it's,
I think it's why he's been able to keep his secret for so long.
That and just the people of Gotham are idiots.
And the people of Gotham are idiots. Yeah. It's not like the glasses when you take them off for Superman. Even that, though, is a theatric example where he's had to use that to...
Well, good artists, with Superman, when he's Clark Kent, they show him hunched over a little bit. Like he's just a big, dopey farm boy.
Yeah.
As opposed to the cut, Superman. So
All-Star Superman did a great job.
All-Star did a wonderful job of
how
that.
You could really do that and pull it off well. I do like when the Bruce Wayne persona influences change within the city as well. Why wouldn't he take advantage of that? Secret identities can be just as interesting in terms of character development as the costume persona when handled right, and that's been something that's been done well. Knowing how he feels about Selina, it says a lot about his mission that he makes an excuse to end the evening early. Most sane men would have taken the woman they are interested in up on the offer, to continue the evening together.
Yeah.
I also think it's where their relationship works in comics because we know the feelings of both internally. We root for them. Your loss, that is true on so many levels because it is something that's keeping him from a potential happiness. I was glad to see it explored in Hush with the two of them, and it was amazing how much I wanted that to stick.
Oh, big time. Yeah, I still root for those two to be together, just like I root for Dick and Barbara to be together. And it just I don't know. It's kind of a cool thing that you want him to have his equal, to have his match out there. You want him to be able to have a happy life, even though he's still got this the mission at hand.
And she, in many ways, is the perfect mate for him because she is capable of truly understanding him.
Yeah.
In her own way. She has different issues, but there is still a common ground because of what her issues drove her to. That the two of them really do have the potential to have the perfect relationship in their world, so to speak. It's funny, Jeff Loeb in both of those stories, this one and Hush, has done a great job of writing Selina Kyle with Bruce. Another reason I wanted to chat about this story was the well-written Jim Gordon and Harvey Dent dialogue. The feeling of this as a private mission that they are both running, and that they feel very isolated and alone, adds power to the villains. And it's a great way to use supporting cast to add to the story, not just for the hero, but for the crime families as well. That develops this sense of, wow, this is overwhelming. Look how the police force really, it's a couple of guys because of the corruption, even in the police department at this point. That to me is an interesting twist on this story and how those characters are used very well.
It's St. Jude, the patron saint of lost causes and police. It's what a lot of times you go with. It's called the revolving door of justice. The money talks, BS walks. It's the powerful people who can make sure that someone who is dead to stone cold to rights, completely guilty as sin, can get away with it. Because of corruption, because of power, because of high-priced lawyers who can, work the system. You see that in in these two guys. Harvey just got, comes back from the party. He's got ice on his head. He's thumped up. Gordon just reaches in the thing, pulls out the whiskey, sets it down. It's a normal routine for them. And the other thing, like with Gordon, you see him talking to his wife. Sorry, honey, it's going to be another late night. Thanks. Yeah, I love you too. And there's stress there. There's stress in Harvey's household. And stuff like this is going to happen. And at any point in time, either one of these guys could have taken the money, could have said, okay, I'm going to play ball. And their life would have been completely different. It would have been easy, straightforward, smooth as silk. Dent would have gotten some really good cases that would have won because, whichever one of the Falcone said, okay, here, you can have these guys. We have a nice, good case for you, nice big bust. Same thing with Gordon. He would have gotten some great tips on where to hit because that's where they would want them to, keep their public image, make them look better. But both guys take the hard road. Both people are like, no, That's not how we roll. This is what we're going to do. And it's just like throughout these pages, and you're just listening and reading Gordon and, Den, they came alive in these pages. And I could hear, the voices from the movie going through these lines. And it was just like one of those great castings of, people that fit these voices right in here. That's when every time I'm reading these lines, that's who I'm hearing. That's what I'm going through.
When Jim Gordon was taken out of the comics for a while, when they retired him, I enjoyed the storytelling. I liked what they did. I liked when they used him because they brought him back in as a confidant where Bruce would, in his most dire, he would go and talk to Jim Gordon. But I'm so glad they made the decision to bring him back because he adds something to the comics, and reinvigorating him and bringing him back in and unretiring him was a great, great move.
Oh, definitely.
I have a friend who wants to help, leading into Bruce gliding into the Falcone estate. It was really a great marriage of art and dialogue in the scene transition. The family picture, again, very Godfather-like. This felt very much like a film to see that. Batman versus Catwoman, very, very sexy in its presentation. It was like two lovers dancing in the exchange and felt very different than an encounter with like the Scarecrow or the Riddler. There's something hot and deviant about it which should be captured with these two. It's a different kind of dance than the two went through earlier.
I tell you, just again, this beautiful 2-page spread of the two. Now, right before this, you kind of have like I don't want to say not as much detail going in the work. It's the art. You're saying the film noir style.
It's perfect, right?
Is perfect description for it. This one has a lot more detail throughout the background. You see the gems that she was stealing, spruing all over the place. You see the look on her face, like I don't have time for this. As she and him are duking it out because she knows that they're on a time crunch. But even just the cut in Bruce's costume, the look on his face, just I was like, wow! It was like it wasn't a splash of color. It was a splash of scenery. It was a splash of just detail that just really came out and popped. Every time they do these two fight scenes like this, they do these 2-page spreads that are just like, I sit there and I stare at them for a while, just saying, that is just really, I just, you look in the background and you see little things, especially the cityscape fight scene they had where you can see bits of the background of the city behind them. It was just a really cool, artwork, meshing of the artwork and story.
It is really interesting to talk about Absolute Editions because it really is artwork that drives my decision on purchasing an Absolute. Because that oversized volume is really an art showcase. Because, the story gets... I shouldn't... It's kind of hard because obviously the script is written for the artwork in mind. So I can't say that it's not the story because it is the written storytelling that drives that as well. But, if it's artwork that I thought was good, I enjoyed it, pleasant piece, I don't feel the overwhelming urge to grab the Absolute as much as I do where I'm really blown away by the artwork. And this is a great example of artwork that really just shines in this particular format. This story does a great job of developing that Selina's more than a thief when it comes to Falcone. There's something very personal here. I would recommend, if you liked this, picking up Dark Victory and Catwoman When in Rome. Dark Victory is the sequel, and When in Rome is a side story in this universe. So you're going to see a lot of the same supporting cast. You're going to see a lot of the same characters. Have you read any of those after this?
No, I haven't.
So if you enjoyed this, I can't.
And as you're saying, I'm like, okay, let's mental note, cha-ching, and okay, add
but it's
them
the
to
same
list.
year one universe. It branches off of characters and elements within this story, so it really is like you can consider that all one big giant universe. So it's a cool story to leap off on after this. Dark Victory, especially, is a direct sequel to this. Falcone's rage here at being attacked in his own home. This escalated things. I think the debate over what Batman does for Gotham versus the way he escalates things with criminals is great because there is a reality to it. I think change in the face of corruption is going to bring that, but it's also unsanctioned, which adds to the concept of being a vigilante is illegal. This story becomes very violent, and some of it is started in this moment. I believe Batman is necessary for Gotham, but I can also see the other side of it. And we'll talk about this more as the story goes on, because it is something that's brought up more than once in this story.
Yeah.
And I really like how it's presented, and I do think there's a reality to it. That's not to say that I think that Batman's bad for Gotham. I think he's great for Gotham, but I think that there is a point there, and it becomes an issue then of, is it worth it? And the ultimate response I have is yes, and we'll talk more about it later. But it really is kind of an interesting twist to this. Maroni and Falcone are rivals, and that makes sense. Power is everything in their world, and alliances would be sketchy at best. The ultimate goal would be to have the most powerful and respected family to keep everyone in line. Rival families would ultimately be looking to take advantage of any sign of weakness. Falcone putting a major price on the head of the Cat in the Bat shows that he's not willing to allow either to make him look weak. And that's important, because power, the second that he loses that power, they're going to gun for him. There's a lot of reasons why. First of all, not only the personal affront that he wants vengeance, but also to maintain that power, he cannot allow them to get away with what they've done.
Yeah, that's, this has been a slap in the face. You hit him in his home. And I just love how
he was besmirched.
Yes. Okay.
Sorry.
No, it had to be said. Well, it actually didn't happen.
No, it
but,
didn't. It really didn't.
It did for us.
Yeah, thank you, though. Again, the sexiness of the chase between the Cat and the Bat worked here. Bruce is trying to understand her. He knows there's something more than a simple theft. In many ways, he needs to believe there is something more to her, and there's power to that. Again, it's like, ugh.
Now, at this point in time, he doesn't know she's Selena Kyle, right?
I don't think so.
Okay, because that's how I took it, that he didn't know who she was. But I just wanted to clarify.
I'm trying to remember from year one if he did know or not. I don't think so. You can also tell with his hope of her having 9 lives that he fears for her because of what Falcone might do to her. I'm trying to remember I'd have to reread Frank Miller's year one. I don't know if that was revealed there. Because this takes place after Miller's year one. I don't remember if I'll be honest with you, I don't remember. So I'd have to take a look
reading
back.
it doesn't sound like it. Because in his inner dialogue, he never says Selena.
Right.
And if he knew she was who she was, he would say it there.
Right.
He may not say it to her face, saying, I know who you are, Selena, because that could possibly expose him. But in his thoughts, he would say it. So that's why I'm thinking he doesn't know yet.
Right. And I would agree with you. The exploration of life as a good cop and DA in Gotham being hard on marriages added another layer of respect to these characters and how much they believe in what they do. It would be easy for both to be on the take, probably spend more time at home, instead of working long hours to gather evidence and hold secret meetings. With how corrupt Gotham is, it's entirely possible they both know they will never see the fruits of their labors. They can at most hope to put a dent in the crime families and set the stage for a future for Gotham where their children might see a better way of life. But this is something that they may not live to see, not even because they might die early.
Even if they live to a normal age, it may not happen. It's a corrupt system is hard to defeat because you have to defeat the corruption from inside the system. So you have to find a way for itself to cave in on itself. And that's hard to do because, if you're in power, if you're in a position of power, if you're a judge on the take, you're not just going to give up, this easy money. You're going to continue taking your easy money. You're going to continue protecting yourself. And if you have other people who it's not known that they're corrupt, then you got your little inside, influence and whatnot. There's, a system is hard to take down. It's easy to instill like an idea. It's easy to take down one bad guy, but the overall corruption, the overall weakness of a system, that is something that's difficult to do, if not and or impossible. And that's always been my argument why they need the Batman. This whole, with the beginning stuff about does he escalate things or not? He is that cog that, is outside the system.
He's a force of change, an agent of change. And anytime you do that, you're right, I'm with you.
You need that outside entity to do something. Maybe the outside entity is the federal government stepping in. Maybe the outside enemy is a guy dressed up in a bat costume. But there's got to be something outside that comes in and, hits you hard.
You got to break a few eggs to make an omelet.
Yeah.
Gentlemen. Yeah, there was nothing but coolness in his appearance here. Once again, the art and the dialogue. Get why I've loved this character since my childhood. Batman is just too cool in a way that just seems to adapt to new styles and presentations. When I read the Batman Chronicles, you can see that in his creation, there was that same presence to the character. You look back to the very beginnings of what they did, what Bob Kane did, and Bill Finger and all these guys. As time went on, what they did with this character, it's a character that just has had this coolness factor throughout and adapts very easily.
I tell you, throughout throughout all of the various art styles of Batman, you have the tall ears, short ears, and the various, more demonic type ears. I tell you, I do like the tall ear. Just this opening sequence, you see him standing there, and it just, most of his costume's in the shadow. He's got the bat light behind him shining up, and it's just one of those things where just like, damn, that's cool, man. Okay. If I saw this, I'd be like, dang, that's scary there. That is an intimidation.
And that's why there's some elements of his costume where you'll sit there and say, well, is that functional? Would that really work? There's got to be an element to him that looks and feels supernatural. And some of the things to it, you might just go, that maybe doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but yet it just works for him for some reason. Yeah. There's few characters that can get away with that where you don't, like, poke holes in it. Like, you can poke holes in all of that, and yet you'll still say, but they have to do it.
It's cool, man.
Yeah, and that's really what it is. And it's just for some reason that works. The sequence on the rooftop was adapted for Dark Knight, and it's one of my favorite sequences in that movie. They make a pact to work to bring down the Roman. Jim makes them promise to do it by the book, and Jim believes in the system. This is something that we saw in Killing Joke. That was really well developed in Killing Joke, this concept of you have to do it by the book. We have to show them the system works. That's something that's vintage Jim Gordon at his core. He is in many ways the heart of Gotham. He shows us what Gotham can be, what the rule system and belief system could be for this city. It's funny, we all know what Harvey Dent becomes, but you can't help but root for him in these moments. And I'm with Bruce. I believe in him here. He's Gotham's soul, and in many ways his duality mirrors the duality of Gotham. He's the tragedy of the city. It's what Gotham was, what it could be, and what it is, all wrapped up into one person. And that's the interesting part about his story, that really I got a lot out of this. Bruce believes in him enough to compromise and agree to do this by the book. Well, there's nothing wrong with leaving a stolen ledger here and there, though.
Come on. There's a fine line. Now, granted, could they use that stolen ledger in court? No. But will it give them a possible, that's an informant. It's a confidential informant who just gave them a piece of information. Now, by having that confidential informant, they can use that information to later get legal warrants and legal stuff. So that's what this is he's just being an informant. Granted, it's an informant who they know stole the stuff, but come on, sometimes you got to bend the line.
Let it go. Let it go. Yeah. I think this is why I adore Begins and Dark Knight so much. The characters are taken directly from this work as a template, and they work on the big screen. He does that. Annoying, isn't it? I love those moments. It's vintage Batman. Yeah. The board meeting brings back Richard Daniel and shows why the Roman is always so confident. Of course, in this case, Bruce Wayne may have lost, but Batman can be more convincing, and I do love that it took that turn. Daniel does resign due to intimidation from Batman, giving power to Bruce, and this causes major problems not just for Falcone, but Maroni and probably the other families as well. Alberto wants to help with advice, but again is ignored, and this is crucial character development here. Weakness is dangerous in the crime families. If you lose your power, it'll not only cost you money, but respect and eventually your life. It's why crossing a crime family is so dangerous, because they have no choice but to lash back. I can side with Alberto here. Johnny's a tool, let's be honest. Dad won't even listen to you, but wants to fly Johnny back in? At this stage in Alberto's life, it's very realistic that these events would mess with him. It is funny that all he needs is a hug, some acknowledgement, and this story would have been very different. Johnny returns and kills Richard. It's funny that timing might have saved him. Although, if you think about it, they would have hunted this guy down to Paris as well, because intimidation's powerful if you want to reopen negotiations.
Yeah, this guy was toast because he crossed them.
Yeah.
And
Paris
once again,
wouldn't have saved him.
There's nowhere he could have hid, to get away from these guys, just because, they still have other people on the take. And if they see one of them getting away with it, it stops the whole process. It's, if I thought I could get away with, double crossing the family, I would get out of it. Just, hey, I quit. I'm out. Sorry. I don't have any power or influence anymore. Can't help you guys. No, bam, you're dead. Once you're useless to us, we're going to finish you off. So letting future people on the take know, you better keep your importance up. You better keep yourself available for us to use.
I love the coloring sequence right there when you see him talking about Paris. It's a little brighter. There's a sense of hope there. And boy, does that get shattered fast.
Yeah, quickly. Very quickly.
Yeah. Good choice, though. It was a really cool way to show that scene. And it leads into this cool black and white workbench sequence with the first holiday killer gun. And clues pointed to Gordon with the baby bottle nipple, to Dent with the tools on the bench looking similar to his basement. This mystery is great because the identity of the holiday killer is rather complicated as well, which we'll discuss as we get further along in the story. But it is interesting to see how in the beginning, like any great mystery, there's hints of why you might think it's Alberto. There's hints of why you might think it's Gordon. There's hints of why you might think it's... I mean, obviously as fans, do we really think it's Gordon? No. But they pointed the finger at Dent as well. You don't know.
Here's the thing. When I first, when I read this, I didn't know what was going on in the story. And I honestly was sitting there going, man, this is the birth of Two-Face. Oh, sweet. Mm-hmm. That's gotta be the Two-Face alter ego because it's, as comic book fans, we know Harvey Dent is going to become Two-Face. So every single time we see it, we look for clues. And I was immediately thinking that this was Harvey Dent doing it, but it wasn't Harvey. It was the Two-Face persona that was in Dent's body.
Subconsciously?
It was his subconscious. And then Harvey didn't realize he was doing this. And so when he gets scarred, that persona becomes the dominant persona. And that's what's going through my head the entire time I'm reading this.
Repression of things that he...
I was constantly... And when I saw the workbench, I was like, yeah, this is cool. Oh, man.
The sequences with both wives show how much strain the danger of this job and always being on call can bring to families. It makes me have so much more respect for the work of good police officers and what they do to keep us safe. Gilda is especially important in her fear of losing her husband. Johnny is the first official holiday killing with the guy in the pumpkin left behind, the one who could potentially talk the first to go. Very interesting in this story and how you sit there and wonder, well, okay, who offed this guy and why? The detective work page was really important. Lay out the clues, start naming suspects and potential motivations. Ask the tough questions. Could Carla kill her son? Was it Maroney? This was handled by a professional or someone who at least knew what they were doing, and I loved these moments. This is good, down to the street level roots Batman storytelling that's really important for a good Batman book.
But I especially love the fact that it wasn't just Batman sitting in the cave going over this.
Agreed.
This was the three of them. They agreed to work together. So we're seeing that team work together, which I was like, damn, that is so cool.
Bruce leaves again because he realizes they're being watched. This was another cool sequence. Again, Catwoman seeing there is a reason to help Bruce to achieve her own goals for revenge. I love that even in her early years, she's a very complex individual. She doesn't want to help, but might be helpful. She needs that distinction. And again, the sexiness in the way that she tells him to follow the money. Tim Sale does a fantastic job of capturing mood and presence here. I really loved the blue and purple tones that were presented on these pages as well, in the colors. It just was, again, good choices in how you use tones and shading to make something work.
With any type of financial crime investigation, or actually any type of crime, there's always going to be the money trail. And follow the money is, without a doubt, one of the most basic rule one in any type of investigation with that. Just like with when you have a homicide, the first person you always look to is family. Mm-hmm. Because you look to the people that are close to them first, because see if they had a reason to do it. How are they reacting to the death? How are they, putting up with, with everything that's going on? You look at those, and it's something, people would say, oh no, they can't. Like, yeah, look at how many of the big crime, homicides that we've seen have been the husband, have been the wife killing the kids, have been the family member, have been some type of, someone connected personally to it. Murder is usually a very personal, crime. It's one of those, it's like, it's a crime kind of passion. It's a crime of, it's a crime of strength, of power over somebody. So that's why you always look at family. Well, when you're dealing with organized crime, when you're going for the RICO statutes, when you're going for the fraud crimes, you look where the money is going. Follow the money, because no matter what you do, there's some businesses, they're called cash-intense businesses. Well, they're legitimate ones. McDonald's, restaurants, they're usually cash-intense business. Drug dealing, that's another cash-intense business. So you have all this cash out there. How do you got to get rid of it? You money launder it. And Bruce took out their banking. Bruce took out, their chance of passing the money. So they had this money sitting there, and they got to get rid of it. And I just love the fact that they're like, follow the money. And, now I don't think you would ever really find a warehouse with stacks of money like this, to be honest with you, because they wouldn't be stacking it in one location. They would spread it out through multiple safe houses, and they would take it out to another state, another banks and whatnot. But
could this be before they had the chance to do that, though? I agree with you. I'm not arguing with that point. But I guess why this worked for me, I was thinking they had to, because of what happened in the whole banking institution, he had no choice but to. He was planning to make this big deposit or, handle this in a major way. And now he's no longer able to do that, so he had to scramble?
Yes and no.
I agree with you.
This is an embellishment of what actually would have happened.
Right.
This kind of they would have had a lot of cash to get rid of, but they wouldn't have had a warehouse full of cash like this. They wouldn't have it in one location.
But
for
are you thinking that that's all of his money?
Well, this is a good chunk of it. But he would have it spread out.
Or is that one
more.
of many?
This could be, now, if they revealed that this was one of many warehouses.
Because he's not a pauper after this.
No.
So, this hurt him, but it certainly didn't cripple him, because it's not like Maroney all of a sudden is...
Right. So he still has his money, he still has his resources.
Right.
But I don't know, I love, now don't get me wrong, if anyone's thinking I dislike them doing this, no, I love this. But this was an embellishment of reality. Mm-hmm. In reality, you would never find a warehouse stacked with money this high to the brim. Maybe you would find it, hidden throughout, various safe houses, various locations and whatnot like that. But you would never see this much in one location, because it's too easy to trace this back to whoever owns this warehouse.
Right.
It's too much of a risk to, there's too much of a direct connection between this money and Falcone. So, but I still loved this sequence, and I was like, oh man, I know what they're gonna do with this.
Yeah.
You saw it coming, and I was just like, oh yeah, burn baby, burn. I love that.
And again, this was adapted for Dark Knight as well.
Yes,
with the Joker.
And as I was sitting there, because I knew. Knew the connection. I was like, oh man, that's cool. I'm glad they brought this into it.
It was interesting because Bruce and Harvey are in the room with the money. The destruction of the money has more power than stealing it. It sends a message. It also shows us that Bruce may cross lines as a vigilante, but has a very strict moral code. Now, if you burn up $10 million of someone's money, you better be smart enough to go into hiding. The ending of this first issue with the trick-or-treaters leaving Harvey's house and the inevitable explosion as the house is being watched really added to the intensity. She's talking about the fact, we got a package here, and what is it? And then, boom. I remember reading this, and I was wondering if they were doing a twist on the birth of Two-Face here, because I was wondering if this is when it happened, right at this moment. And I think it's important to note, because I was wondering if he would be hurt here or if the wife would die. It really made me speculate. And I love even more what actually was happening as we find out in issue 2. But I remember reading this monthly was really intense, because you had to wait a whole month for the next issue to come out.
Yeah, I could not imagine reading this and having to wait that time.
So
I would have
cool,
heard somebody.
Though.
I would have heard somebody.
But you got to remember what was cool about this when it came out was it was actually released during the holiday months. So October was the first issue, November was the second issue, December was the next issue. So it followed the holidays. And you came back at the end to Halloween.
Oh, that's cool. Now that is
13 issues.
cool.
It went Halloween to Halloween. It's a very good book. I mean, it was a very interesting way for it to be developed and put. It was a great year.
Nice work, Atom. What are these characters up to?
As we kick into issue 2, I really enjoyed the covers of this series. I remember when it originally came out, this Grundy one was pretty darn cool. Each release came out the month of the holiday, so it was really fun to follow this because of that. And that was one of those covers that, for some reason, it really stuck out for me, because I'm a big Grundy fan anyway.
It was one of the things I really digged about the story was your main criminals were the mob. This was the main fight of Batman versus the mob, but you had the appearances of the other rogues in these titles. And Solomon Grundy isn't a character I would have even have considered, to be a Batman rogue. I see him. I've always seen him more as a Superman rogue and just the Justice JSA rogue, not really as a Batman.
But
rogue.
the original Green Lantern, who was his nemesis, was based in Gotham.
Yeah, well,
that's where the character really fits there.
Yeah, I understand his use, but it was just something when I first was reading this, I was like, Grundy? What? And then I see how they use him. Like,
he's had a lot of appearances in Batman over the years, so he's one of those characters that has a reoccurring character role there. It's funny though. My love for Grundy comes from when he was a good guy in Starman. So it's interesting how I always read him as a Batman villain, and really it's funny because of your reading preferences. He would be more of a Superman villain to you, but to me, he was more of a Batman villain because I saw him in Batman. So he is a character that's kind of made some ways. It was funny when you were talking about how this was more of a mob story. It's also a transition story because it shows how Gotham was a mob town and how it transitioned into a Batman's rogues town. Because that is where this story goes, and that is one of the neat little twists of this tale. So it was interesting that you noted that. So, Harvey Dent is dead. I knew at the kickoff of this issue what was up from the opening line, but it's always the delivery that makes something work, and this is another sequence that I believe influenced Dark Knight. Jim Gordon's death being faked, for example. I was thrilled those films went to the comics for inspiration because that really worked. Mickey the Mink Sullivan and his crew are keeping quiet due to intimidation and promises from Falcone. I love scenes of police work in Gotham. Batman's world really shines like this. It's why Gotham Central is a read that I highly recommend. It's one of those things that reminds us that this world is a police work world and that these are characters that are important. Tracking down the nails to the hardware store that sold them and now back to the bomber is stuff that I just eat up. It's something that gives Batman an edge and why other heroes respect him and why he's useful in almost every situation is because of mentally what he brings to the table. The escape sequence from the motel room was fantastic. I loved the fear, the determination. Dude jumped out the window and slid down a sign, breaking the letters along the way. It's amazing how the sense of urgency can be brought to a comic's page. Great art team moment here that really just shined. It's a 2D page, but it felt very three-dimensional, very much like I was following a film strip. His escape leads him to the sewers and, of course, to Solomon Grundy. I'm a huge fan of Grundy, like I said, since Starman. And it's cool to see Batman realize that he's in the middle of this misunderstanding with the Giant.
I like that. He's like, I have no quarrel with you. I'm after the one who disturbed your slumber. Your slumber.
Right.
I thought that was a really cool way for Batman to initially try to get away with not having a fight with Grundy. Maybe he could say, hey, I'm just going to take this guy and leave you in peace. I ate that up. I was like, yes, that is an intelligent Batman that we love to read. That is a guy he's always thinking, he's hot on his feet. Other heroes would have hit the ground seeing Grundy, okay, time to duke it out with Grundy, and just gone right into a fight. Batman tries other routes.
He took out a full-on Batman punch to the face. Now, I think we have to assume that Bruce was not holding back, in this case, knowing his foe. Okay, I have to ask this. What do you think Bruce pulled out of his utility belt to use on Grundy to release the grip? Was it something to blind him? Because I'm still a little confused there.
I don't know. I kind of took it maybe it was like his regular gas pellets or maybe like some,
because there's something
funky,
because he was covering his face afterwards, Grundy, and it does look like a little bit of a flash is going there, but I'm not 100% sure exactly what happened there. Because at one point in time, I thought he put a finger up the nose, but then I saw he pulled something out of the utility belt, so I'm like,
I'm thinking like his regular exploding things, but not allowed to expand, but expand in Grundy.
Okay, yeah. Because, it was definitely, it looked like a flash of some sort that went off there, like he was somehow blinded or disoriented, so I'm wondering what it was. He lets Grundy go and takes Mickey, and we head back to the interrogation sequence. Mickey is sticking to his story, but also adds another twist. He blames Harvey for the death of Johnny, and this adds again that he's a suspect in this case, which is true. At this point in the story, it crafted 3 possible suspects. Like, we still have Gordon, we have Harvey, and Pee-wee at this point. I don't know, was that who you were thinking when you originally read it?
Well, actually, when I was originally reading it, I was thinking pure Harvey.
You thought Two-Face.
Yeah,
Totally
I initially
story.
thought it was. I initially saw Pee-wee, and I said, "Oh, okay, it's going to be the jaded son." Oh, okay, yeah, that'll be kind of cool. And then as soon as they started talking about Harvey, I'm like, "Oh my God, this is the origin of Two-Face." So throughout this whole thing, right after that moment, I was always thinking Harvey, and I was always looking at Harvey to be the holiday killer. So.
Bruce is quick to defend Harvey, and I do like that Gordon went there. As a good detective, Gordon would have to look at all options. Batman believes in him, though. And back to Mickey, he's more afraid of Falcone than even the gas chamber. There are some fates worse than death. The switch was handled so well visually. Not only do we see a different escort, but Mickey is a little thinner and slightly taller. Nicely handled there. That was very cool in the art sequence there. The moments with Alberto and Dad were really important to me because I needed to see why Alberto would even care if Dad gave him any attention at all. A simple thing like seeing Carmine as a dad, cooking with his son, an important sequence in my eyes because it showed a different side to him and their relationship. Then, of course, Carla bursts in and shows us a mother who lost her only son. This is her legacy and trusted ally, gone.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, in this world, we're saying you can't trust anybody, but usually you can trust your family. So when you have, the only person she could honestly trust was her son in her eyes. And that's a good, guess for her to go with because odds are he's not going to kill her, maybe. There's a chance it could happen, but as a general rule, you don't kill your own family because, that shows, you have weakness of character if you're going after your own family. So there is a safety there. But now she's pointing fingers. Who would have the gain from it? Who would have benefited from it? And she's also suspecting her brother. She's thinking it's him, that he, wanted to take out a potential risk to his family. So who knows who's behind this? I like seeing these criminals, going off the deep end, going off things. They're stressed out. They're on the edge. They need to say, hey, what's going on here? It's not just, now we're seeing not just the cops who are on the edge, but the criminals as well. They've run this town for so long, and they're now losing control. They're now losing their power. And this isn't a good thing. We got to stop this now.
Also, it shows, though, if it was Carmine's son, this discussion would not be going in the direction it was. This would be continuing on a major, major level. It adds that the relationship between these two, brother and sister, has probably been strained for quite some time. And more than likely, it's the reason Johnny was so willing to go to grand jury on his uncle. That there probably never has been a good relationship. The sense of loyalty was just not there. So that's an interesting little twist. Fake Mickey is trying to get details from the crew, but they aren't talking. This was great because they would be worried of the guards overhearing. They would want to keep their mouths shut and stick together so the lion, quote-unquote, watching over them will choke on them over getting any info. These guys are pros. They also know that Falcone is going to take care of them. So it is interesting, again, the power being shown here by Falcone and his reach. They stick to their stories, which puts our heroes in a dilemma. Harvey's revealed, of course, to be the fake Mickey. Now, did you still, at this point when Harvey was revealed, did you still think he was Holiday?
Yeah, I still was thinking, as I said, I was thinking it was Two-Face, not Harvey doing it. So I was thinking that we're going to see, this other persona. The psychological persona of Two-Face was created at this point in time. The stress of everything going on, and he started doing this. I was 100% convinced. I still had inklings towards Pee-wee, but I really, we'll later see about in New Year's why I quit thinking it was him.
Right. They have to figure out what to do. Do they charge them? Release them on the streets? But say that they talked to see if they can get leads that way. Harvey believes they should just release them and make it look like they talked. They will get free anyway, so why not try to use it to their advantage? Gordon needs it by the book, though, and makes Harvey charge them. And of course, they quickly make bail. Dent spends Turkey Day with his wife in the hospital. Gordon makes dinner, and in comics, this relationship eventually fell apart. Jim Gordon is an everyman. He's not perfect, but has a strong moral code. We can relate to him. He always tries to do what is right. It doesn't always work out perfect, but that doesn't stop him from being an all-around good guy. We respect him. And he's a very well-written comic character, because I think he makes us feel like we could live in Gotham and be part of that world because of his humanity. Because just, he's not perfect. But yet we all aspire to have that kind of code to be able to stand on that level.
See, for me, one of the thing on this sequencing, really kind of actually helped me, believe that it was Harvey who was the killer was because Harvey was willing to release them, make it look like they ratted them out, see what would happen, see if they get any leads that way. What, he was going against, he wasn't following the line. He was doing a vigilante type thing.
See,
he was doing what a superhero or what a Batman would try to do, not what the DA would do. And that's why I love the fact that Gordon was like, no, we got to do it by the book. We got to toe the line. We're charging them. Even though he knows it's a fruitless battle. He knows those guys are going to walk, and if it ever goes to trial, they will get off. He knows that for a fact. But he's got to make sure that they always do it the right way.
He's been like a vigilante, though. He was like a vigilante when he was at that party taking down license plate numbers. Because that's not really the job of the DA.
Yeah, that's not really the job of the DA, but it falls in the line of police investigation and police work, so it's kind of not the
But again, he's taking a vigilante role in the sense that he's taking more than his job on to do that. In this case, he's using his job as a DA to say, I'm telling you, they're going to be out in less than an hour. Why don't we try to use this? I'm with you. I agree with you. There is a vigilante element to him, but I'm saying this wasn't the first time that we saw it. We saw it right in the beginning when he was down there writing license plate numbers down and he got beat up. I mean, that was, again, because he was in a vigilante moment. Realistically, you would not see the DA there doing this.
No. In a realistic town, you would not ever see any person from the DA's office doing anything.
And I'm agreeing with you.
That's the police work that would do it. Maybe you would see the cop who, isn't going to let it go, who's, going, above and beyond what they got to do to bring down the guy. You would see that. You would never see a DA down there.
Yeah, I guess my point was that I'm agreeing with you, and I'm saying, though, that this, taking it to one step further, I think that has been consistent in the storytelling, though. It's not contingent on his wife being hurt. He was like this before. And this is just something where, I think Jim Gordon, that's why I said Jim Gordon's the heart of Gotham in the sense that he's telling both of his vigilante friends, that basically, guys, listen, we've got to do this by the book. When Final Crisis Requiem came out, we saw Bruce leave cookies for the Martian Manhunter. It was a simple thing, but showed us that he has a heart under all the darkness. I felt similarly when he left the turkey dinner for Grundy. He was an innocent who didn't want to be disturbed. Grundy, in Bruce's eyes, was the victim to Falcone, in the same way as some of the other citizens of Gotham. So he was trying to do something nice. The giant. As Bruce worries more and more about the Roman gaining control of Gotham, Holiday strikes again on Mickey and his crew. All black and white except for the table garnish left by Holiday to signify Thanksgiving as the issue closes. This is a great mystery. I got to admit that I didn't see the real killer coming. And actually, it was even more complicated than the statement that I just made. That's what made it a great mystery, because it really was, there was multiple levels to this, in the sense that, and I don't even want to expand on that yet, because I think it's more fun to talk about it as we get to there in the storytelling. But it was a very complex story, and that my journey fits very much the statement that I just made. I didn't know who it was. I wasn't at this point, I was not convinced that it was Harvey anymore. When the house blew up, I thought it was. But then when I saw that he wasn't disfigured, I'm like, well, wait a minute. So they threw me off there.
Yeah, I was still going heavy towards Harvey, and I fully admit, and why I was thinking that. And it's one of those things that when we as fans have extra knowledge above and beyond. Especially, I'm reading something old. So I'm reading something that was done in the past. So I have some future knowledge of who Harvey becomes and whatnot. So it's. I think that type of stuff works for us and works against us at times. And that was one of my enjoyment of this, is that it was a surprise for me. It was a nice swerve, and I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
I love the mystery aspect of it. And that was something that I enjoyed more from the second, third read-throughs, was that when I knew the ending, and I was seeing these little clues going along the way, going, oh, man, that's cool.
And why it wound up that way. As we kick into issue 3, I'm glad they waited a couple issues until the Joker. It makes sense that because really, realistically, issue 3 is technically the 4th issue as far as page numbers wise in this particular story. And it makes sense that the Holiday Killer would agitate him. I love Tim Sale's Joker. From the opening page, we see a great-looking sequence. He jumps from happy to angry on a whim. He is presented in a deranged manner, which really works for me. Is it bad that on some level, I would love to be able to tell people that the Joker came to my house and stole my Christmas presents? I was watching that whole segment. I'm like, how cool would that be? It was very funny.
Well, I was laughing because the guy looks angry. And personally, I wouldn't be angry if he was leaving. I'd just be glad I was still alive.
Yes.
This is the Joker, dude.
Yes.
You're lucky he doesn't leave and go, oops, I forgot to kill you. Come back and kill you.
Then he slithered and slunk, with a smile most unpleasant, around the whole room and took every present. The one speck of food that he left on the house was a crumb that was even too small for a mouse. To the top of the porch, to the top of the wall. Now dash away, dash away, dash away all. Dude even took their Christmas tree.
Well, now, when I was reading this, I was thinking, you're a naughty one, Mr. Joker.
Gordon and Batman have that convo. That since he arrived, these appearances have escalated. And it's honestly true. The thing that works about Batman is that he also inspires the uprising of hope in the citizens. We saw this exploration during the battle for the cowl. The city needs Batman for hope. He's become a symbol. The trade-off is ultimately worth it, and I like that. It's an interesting, and I'm glad that it's brought to attention here, though. Calendar Man is very much the weird guy from the park that you don't let your kids get candy from. He's obsessed with the calendar, and that obsession shows in his presentation. He looks eccentric. He looks strange. There's something just off about him, right?
Yeah.
When he's talking serious, I'm talking about. We eventually see him later just like salivate over the calendar, but does he know the true nature of the killer? His cryptic clues somehow speak the truth, which is something I didn't notice until the reread. You know, which was interesting.
Where he's going back and forth between she'll be killing and he doesn't know, and jumping back and forth. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool.
In part 3 of this, we'll have to talk about the motivations of Holiday, which we have started to present, but we can't really talk about because it really is cool just to kind of share that moment when we go through it. But Calendar Man does point out a problem. What will Holiday do in a month like February, where there's multiple days to worry about? What will he do during Christmas and Hanukkah in the same month, for example?
Yeah, it was. Which holiday does he go with? Which one does he pick?
Does he do more than one?
Yeah.
Hey, Jim, Maroni's Thug has your own nickname of Toots. Toots.
Thanks.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
You used to like that when we call you Toots.
No, I didn't.
We started it.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did.
I did not start the Toots one.
Yes, you did.
No.
We were sitting right there, and you're the one that said Toots.
What are you? No, I did the Blaine. I did Blaine.
You did Toots, too.
No, I don't know who called me Toots, but it wasn't me. I didn't start
I know I kept it going.
You kept it going, but somebody called. I don't remember who it was now, but I know for certain I did not do that one. Yeah, I'll admit to Blaine. That was a stupid thing.
It was the wrestler.
Yeah.
He pointed out at the audience.
Yeah, what do you think? Okay, that's it. Yeah. Okay, let's give an explanation to everyone going, what the hell is this? Sean and I were at a professional wrestling event, and the guy, one of the bad guy wrestlers, was smack talking to the audience, and he goes, yeah, I'm talking to you, Toots. And he points in my general direction.
No, he pointed at you.
No, he pointed to the lady sitting next to me.
I bet
he did not point at me. He pointed at the lady next to me, but once again, Sean being Sean, and he kept that Toots thing going forever, and it finally died, and I completely forgot about it until now. Thanks for bringing back the repressed memories.
You're still a sensei to me, Toots. The Joker coming after Maroni shows he has a twisted logic. Maroni is the number 2 man. He does stand to gain a lot. Okay, when Batman lands on the car, there's nothing but power in that moment. Very intimidating. He takes out the thugs who were, taking the corpse of Toots outside, and now has the same idea as the Joker. Shake down Maroni. It was just, I like that moment.
And this is another one of those, powerful art moments, where you see him just swoop in behind Maroni's coming out, looking for his guys. What the heck's going on? And then he's just standing behind him. Don't be stupid. I'm like, yes.
I love the tiny details like the footprints on the car trunk as Maroni is left lying there. The art totally fits the era being presented, but it's just like a little things like that. I'm like, yes, I appreciate that. That's very cool. I'm a big Year One Batman storytelling fan, and this was, Harvey and Gilda, the tragic love story. The perfect gingerbread house, because it has that like fairy tale that takes a dark turn feel to it right there.
Yeah, it takes a real quick dark turn.
Oh, yeah. The bit where Harvey notices the footprints and sends Gilda upstairs without alerting her was great. He's trying to protect her from any more stress. Just came back from the hospital. Their house was blown up, you know. And I got to comment on the colors. Great choices on when to keep things plain and dark to match the solemn nature of Gotham. But right there with Joker in the tree, shocking colors brought to life there. Totally fits the moment. Joker's following the clues, and Harvey is, of course, a suspect. Harvey holding his own against the Joker, but not being able to win makes sense. It shows he's tough, takes nothing away from the Joker. His rage and anger would also work against him. His new home's just being violated. He brought his wife here to be safe and to start over, but now that's being taken away too. And, I love it when the Joker is kind and asks for help from others. Gotta love it when he has the chutzpah to break into Falcone's penthouse and threaten the Roman.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, this is a guy who's currently frustrating Gordon, Harvey, and even Batman with his power. Joker just doesn't care. He's a force of nature, and this is what works about him. This is the Joker that we saw in The Dark Knight.
There is no fear, there is no remorse, there is no conscience, there is no nothing that would slow down, hesitate, or whatnot to the Joker. This is who he is. He is bam, in the moment, bam, in the now. But he is also smart. He pulled, he got through, to the Roman. How many people are able to do that?
No.
Joker did.
Right.
Why? Because he didn't hesitate. He came across the guard, he killed him. Came across another guard, killed him. It just boom, boom, boom. And that is one of the dualities of who the Joker is. People who write him as just some crazy, goofy guy, haha, everything's funny. No. There is that logic, there is that intelligence, but there is also that cruelty, that lack of human conscience that just, would slow or hesitate anybody else. He does not have that. And I just love seeing a good Joker story for that reason.
You tell him, Toots. Sorry. He threatens Falcone to find Holiday, or he will take out as much of Gotham as he can to find Holiday himself. And I would so watch a Joker Holiday special. It's got to be better than the Star Wars one.
Hey, come on, that Star Wars one was awesome, man.
Well, it'd be Arthur.
Yeah.
So you got to give him that.
You can't,
Anything with Maude works, but... He spoke not a word, but went straight to work, and filled all the stockings, then turned with a jerk. He starts fighting the bodyguard red shirt, but then goes back to his speech. Laying a finger aside of his nose and giving a nod up the chimney he rose. I mean, it was great. As he drives away, Holiday shows up. This reminds me very much of the Joker specials that he did. There was one cartoon episode in Batman the Animated Series where the Joker did like a special. He took over TV.
Yeah, it was a Christmas special.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah.
It was awesome. As he drives away, Holiday shows up, and I encourage everyone to reread this. The timing so fits with the motivation of the killer at this time. The events that led to this murder. Very well crafted, how this all worked out. The bodyguard is gunned down as the Joker drove away. After the Joker drove away. The snow globe, the symbol of the holiday. Bruce sees the Joker's card and knows that he's part of this. And it's true, actually, because the Joker not only put the bodyguard in a vulnerable position, but set into play the events that agitated Holiday in this issue. Good stuff. And that's what I mean. In the reread, you see this sequence very differently in how the Joker is to blame on a certain level for what happened here. Bruce doesn't think that he's Holiday, but Bruce knows that the Joker's escalating things. And he's recognized that, and that's why he's trying to seek him down, to shut him down. So now he's got two problems. In many ways,
Holiday and the Joker now, so...
In many ways, you could argue that part of the reason why Bruce is having trouble catching Holiday is because he's got distractions like the Joker that he's got to deal with, because he's trying to gas the entire city, and he's the bigger priority.
Yeah, well, I do like Joker's logic and why he was gassing the whole city. Mm-hmm. Maybe Holiday would be one of the people he kills. So there.
Yeah.
Problem solved.
And he can't understand why Bruce doesn't see it either in issue 4. So it's, let's just jump into issue 4, because this is a really funny Joker.
Yeah.
Co-pilot, check. Navigator, check. Even some fun with the stewardess and smoking regulations. It's good stuff. I love good, solid Batman adventure sequences. The car on autopilot, attaching himself to the plane. I'm hoping more of this gets brought into future films. They're making the movie costumes more mobile now. And so we can get this kind of Batman storytelling, I think, in film. And I'd love to see that brought to life with live action characters. I mean, this.
Oh, God, a sequence like this.
But I think you can do it now.
Here's the thing: you definitely could do it, but it's funny because the comic book fans would love it, but non-comic book fans would say, "Please, come on, the physics behind that are impossible. He could never." And I know for a fact we would get people complaining about a scene like this. Like you and I would be like, "Oh, that was awesome, man! I was like right out of Long Halloween, cool." But the non-comic book fans would eat it alive. They had those issues people had with some of the physics of Superman. And I'm like, the basic premise of this is he is an alien from another planet who's got superpowers because of our sun. And you're giving me these physics lessons saying, well, he technically couldn't be able to do this. Come on.
Well, it's like, can you fly around on a broom? I mean, it's...
exactly.
Again, no, it's magic. There's a certain part where fantasy... You've got to let yourself have a certain sense of disbelief during that time. It goes back to Batman having the long, pointy ears. It looks really cool. Is it, does the shorter ears make a little bit more sense? Yes. But there are some sequences where those long, pointy ears just look more supernatural, more, it's that fear component. He looks more like a vampire beast. There's those elements do add something to the character. That I'm like, okay, this works. You just gotta, in that moment, you've got to let it go for the visual of it and what it brings to the table. Kelly Jones, great example of an artist who I really enjoyed on Batman. It was Gotham After Midnight, I think was the name of the 12-issue miniseries.
Yeah.
But he had a long run as the artist on, I believe it was the Batman book, not Detective, I think. He was the cover artist and the main artist of it. I always enjoyed those issues. His art style is very supernatural looking in his presentation of Batman. So it's a very different type of book when you read a Kelly Jones Batman. Some of it, when you look at the artwork, I'm like, well, it kind of doesn't make sense. But yet it does for Batman. He gives him more of a beast-like look to him. He looks more like a supernatural creature. And to me, I always took it as Kelly Jones's Batman is what Batman looks like through the eyes of the people who witness him in fleeting moments and when he swoops on in. I always liked that, and that works for me. You can kind of make that visual work. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's like the Gotham Knights DVD that we saw. When those kids are telling the story, and each one is portraying Batman in a different light because how they saw, Batman. The one, is like the computer living shadow, supernatural. The other one's the robot. The other one's more realistic. It's just, I like that. It's like that type of stuff, and that's when I see these more supernatural drawings. I go back to that, that movie, and I think, okay, yeah, it's perception. It's how he is seen through the eyes of the villain or the person being beaten up. It's not a pure accurate interpretation of the man, but that's okay. There's some licensing with it. There's some artistic, leeway you got to give it. And
that's the way he operates, especially. Yeah. He's an urban myth.
Yeah, and that's his strength, is the urban myth, is the mystery. And it's funny because it's something that, a couple years ago, I wouldn't be able to say this. Because a couple years ago, I was one of those people who really didn't like the supernatural look, I liked more of the realistic, the practical look. I would have been one of those idiots saying, that's not really physically the physics behind. I would have been one of those idiots. I admit that. And it's as I'm getting more into the book, I'm seeing that and I'm recognizing that aspect, and that's an aspect in all of comics, really. It especially works for Batman, but in other characters, I'm finding I am a lot more lenient if the artwork is fitting the story with going with a different art style.
I think there's a difference between the good geeky debate and letting something ruin your enjoyment. People get angry about things that, like, if you want to have a debate about the reality of it, nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying that. Because I have those geeky debates too, and it's fun to get into and try to defend and pros and cons of it and how it would work and how it wouldn't work and why. And you can both be right and be on completely opposing sides of that argument, and it's still, in your mind, how you've crafted that this works for you can be right, and somebody else on the other end can say, no, it just doesn't work on any level. And yet you can both be right and see the story in two completely different ways. So I'm okay with that. But there's people who just get downright mad.
Yeah.
It's like, what do you go... I mean, I go to a film to be entertained. And I love the geeky debate. Obviously, I mean, with what we do here, obviously we do a ton of geeky debates on this show. So I have no problem with somebody, you know, if they're like, well, okay, I like the reality, I like the realism, I like to poke through that. Go ahead and do it. That's fine. Just don't let yourself get to the point where you forget that the purpose is enjoyment. You know, and go in there with that intention and try to get that out of it. You know, do have a focus of that. But get into the geeky debates because those are fun to a certain extent to try, you know, could there really be kryptonite? Could it really kill Superman? You know, that type of thing. I get into the science of superheroes as well because there was a book written called The Science of Superheroes. I got the audiobook of it from Audible and I listened to it. And it's kind of fun to hear what scientists think would work and wouldn't and why, and I do get into that. But there is that element of me that's always going to be the kid that likes to go into a comic story, and I like my disbelief suspended. And I think good writers can make me believe something that I know just isn't possible. Yeah. And it's okay that it just isn't possible. It's fun. It's escapist fantasy, and during that time frame, you believe certain things. It's like old television shows, old sci-fi, where people wearing rubber suits that are so clearly not real. You know, I mean, but I love that stuff. You know, I'm into 60s and 70s sci-fi that was just plain awful before. You know, I mean, talking about special effects were just not there, but yet the actors and the storytelling captivated you so much that you still believed it. You saw the wires, you saw the on ships and things like that.
Like the sound effects was the actual guy going, pa-choo, pa-choo.
Yeah. Pow.
Yeah, you saw that, but it still, it was okay because one, you know, it's just, you know, it's that suspension of disbelief. It's the theater of the mind, if you will.
Right. And the best of that old classic sci-fi worked because in those moments, for some reason, there was something they did that made you forget or at least get drawn enough into the story that you started to believe for a few fleeting seconds there that rubber suit actually was an alien. Vernon makes a connection between Bruce Wayne and the Roman, and tiny details that I really adore. I really like when secret identities have their own issues to deal with. You get close to criminals through a variety of circumstances and use those connections, but it makes sense the police would eventually question you. In this case, the Roman and Bruce's dad have a history. You know, and that is something that should come back. That is something that should count.
Oh, yeah. And I tell you, I love seeing the geeky office worker because, you know, to be honest, that's kind of who I am. You know, I'm, you know, the investigator. I'm the guy who would find stuff like this. I'm the guy who would be the one reporting it and whatnot. So I saw my man. I'm like, yeah, that's right. Office nerds rule the world, baby.
Jim, I don't see you as Vernon. You're always Toots to me.
That nickname's back. You know?
No, it's only going to be for this episode.
Thank God.
I got to be honest with you. I'm not really that sold on it. Okay. I'm more into the whole sensei thing. I just thought it was funny that this book just had Toots in it, and it somehow sparked that reaction because it's really not that good of a nickname for you.
Yeah.
It was one of those you had to be there moments, and the fact that he just happened to point at you with Toots, and I happened to be sitting there. It's just sometimes things work into my advantage. And that's really what it is.
You do leave a charmed life sometimes.
I do.
You know?
It was like he was giving it to me.
Yeah. I was like, here, let me just put a little bow on this present and hand it to Sean.
Yeah, that's really what it was. It's really not that good.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was actually more fun that same night. I think we were in a hotel room that we both thought we were going to get killed in. Yeah. Was that where we were was that one of the nights where we were in the hotel room where like the door wouldn't lock and there was like holes in the walls and
No. Yeah. No,
that wasn't an Econo Lodge night?
No, that wasn't the Econo Lodge.
And I've stayed at nice Econo Lodges, but that wasn't one of them.
the Econo Lodge, but this one Econo Lodge we stayed at, you know, the one door had been kicked in, and you could see where it had been pried open, you know, basically by the police prying in the door, and it was, that was a scary night, and we're just like, oh man, we're going to die. Yeah.
And even you took a shower in that place, and the shower was so disgusting that you felt dirtier afterwards. Those are some fun trips. The plane not flying right because of the added weight. Another detail I appreciated. A great way to alert the Joker that he has a stowaway. That spread of the two of them was really beautiful. The muscular detail of Batman makes sense. The Joker's expression, very twisted. You know he is running through thousands of ways to play this situation and goes with the most insane. But just like the Joker, Falcone looks at Maroni because his family has no blood on the table. Not only does Carmine need to be paranoid of him, but his sister as well. All that power, but you'll never feel safe. You never feel at home. Alberto's the only one he can trust now, and it's interesting that that realization happens with where this issue goes. And wow, too little too late? The light taken out, the gun going off, Alberto falling overboard, and Holiday leaves another victim. This is an interesting sequence to read over again with the reveal later because it's what we don't see here. It's just as important as what we do see here.
Yeah.
There are certain missing elements, important elements here, that are clearly missing from Alberto's death. And that was something that, to me, watching this through again, wow.
Yeah, I know. It's still one of those things where I do kick myself. When I know the ending and I didn't see it throughout this.
Oh,
this
I totally swerved. Totally
swerved.
Yeah,
this was a beautifully just crafted mystery where it kept me going, kept me wondering. Well, I'm still thinking Dent this whole time, and I was like, damn, this is cool. I love this story.
Holiday dinner with friends sounds great, but I actually find this when I get together with coworkers. It's hard not to talk shop. When you are a support piece for each other at work, it's hard not to vent or laugh at inside jokes. In this case, things get grim fast because Harvey has to fill in Jim on what he's learned about Bruce Wayne. We also learn a bit about frustrations of the wives. Gilda wants to have kids, but their current lifestyle and the case with the Joker and Holiday seems to take up even more time now. At this point, it has been 4 months with no sign of ending soon. It gives us a ton of insight on the state of Gilda and what's driving her. Very different priorities. Any good marriage needs to eventually find a happy medium. And this is it's a very important character study at this particular juncture in the story that, again, leads clues for later.
And one of the things I really digged was seeing with Harvey when he comes in and Gilda's like, your hair, it's wet. And that for me was just another bang, there's some more clues.
Yeah, oh yeah.
He was on the boat. He killed him. All right. Harvey's Holiday. That was something I just ate up. I was like, perfect. This is outstanding. And actually the adding of the baby nipple when she was really, talking about, with wanting kids, I was like, that's further thing for Harvey because he's got this whole kid thing going over his head. And I just kept finding more and more clues that pinned it on Harvey. And I was just like, dang, this is a cool way this went.
Barbara is Jim's niece in this continuity. Through her history, she was either his daughter directly or his niece that he adopted, which is how the daughter role keeps coming up in either case. It was interesting that she, in some continuity, she was the daughter of Gordon's brother Roger and Roger's wife Thelma. And when she was 12 or 13, her parents died, and Babs moved to Gotham City to live with her uncle and aunt and cousin. So she was either adopted or directly, huh?
That kind of threw me when I read them. Like Babs, so there's Barbara, his wife, Babs, the cousin, then he has a daughter, Barbara. Hey, they really love the name Barbara.
Yeah, well, Barbara, the cousin, is Babs. It's throughout her, through the redoing of the origins
I didn't
continuity.
Know. Yeah, I honestly, that's something
she was
either
directly his daughter or his adopted daughter. So the daughter role always came up, but it was the birth daughter or adopted daughter. So it's interesting. The Joker seems genuinely baffled that Batman would try to stop him, and I think he really does think there is a logic to what he does. Why would Bruce stop him? He is just trying to take out the villain, just like he would, Batman. I mean, hey, what do you got an issue with here?
You're going to gas everybody, so what? Yeah. I will get the bad guy with this.
You're insane. Has it really taken you this long to notice? I mean,
come on, that was just a Fed line that had to come out. If he wouldn't have said it, there would have been something wrong. And I laugh when I read it every single time I read it. I still chuckle with it. It's just it's a classic Joker moment that just so fits the character, so fits this book, and even it fits where it has to go.
This whole flight combat sequence was gorgeous, but I particularly liked the final punch, which Bruce still having elements of a shredded cape. It's funny how, at the new year, he continues his resolution to rid Gotham of evil, but finds hope that he may be able to eventually achieve that goal to take down Falcone. It's just a very powerful ending with him in front of the clock tower, standing there.
Yeah.
It's the costume a little bit battered, but he still looks so powerful in that moment. It was just a wow ending to this.
Yeah, dude, that's a, holy crud. That's a dude who can do some serious damage and do some, lay down the beating.
Mm-hmm. It was a great issue.
The ending is, with Falcone, being brought down with the coroner and being brought down, finding his son, and just that for me was just a cool moment because you really see, we've seen him as this powerful killer. He's this monster who would do anything, but he is still a father. And when he's sitting there with his son, and it was just, he's sitting there on the beach, had the classic, whoa, no, kind of crying moment.
That's what I meant earlier about it being like too little, too late.
Yeah, and that was something I just, really ate up, and just the way this played out, especially like with the coroner, who we later learned some more details about, and just everything, all the pieces in the puzzle that were here from the beginning and here for your exposure that we didn't see until the ending.
And a sharp distinction, like I said, with Carla and her son, his reaction to his son dying. This is not business. This is personal.
Yeah,
and we see a very different reaction from him, which...
Yeah, and it's the full page spread of him just, quietly saying Alberto. And it just, you can tell the pain in this. And this is a mob boss who needs to retain the influence, needs to retain the power.
Right.
And he has to look powerful. It really reminded me, once again, back to Godfather, when
Sonny died.
Yeah, and you just see him in the funeral parlor, and just he's holding, look what they did to my son, and it just, you see that there's that passion in Brandon. I was just like, I kind of felt the same thing going on here.
And I did like the ties to Godfather in this.
Oh, yeah.
There's definite ties to Godfather in this.
You need to. Yeah,
right.
If you're going to tell a mob story, why not, either
Pull
borrow from or
one,
tie, however you want to word it, from the best. So, yeah.
Green Lantern, let you and I destroy that space junk.
Jim, there's one thing I wanted to discuss before we go into... We got a lot of listener voicemails. We got a couple audio comments. Before we hit those, I wanted to talk to you about the price increases, because we haven't really formally discussed it on the show. We've gone from $2.99 to $3.99 on... I haven't checked if it's every book, but a lot of the books. Especially, obviously, all the co-feature ones are doing it. I know Batman and Robin was kicked off with that price point. So without spoiling any of the books that have come out so far, like Booster Gold, we just read, so far, for the extra buck, I was thrilled with having the co-feature. And my concern, though, is it's going to be cost prohibitive for new readers who might want to take a chance on comics, I think. $3.99 price point to me seems like, you got $4 a crack now. I understand why they're doing it to a certain extent from the business end. I'm here to support the creators. And so, I'm a realist in the sense that there's a business side of comics. Comics have to make money. They have to pay the creators in order to do that. On the fan end, I continue to buy comics because the creators deliver something for me that makes it worth keeping coming back. So on the fan end, I'm always pro-creators, so I come back for the creators. That's where I'm at. But I can see a lot of fans that are on the business end, they're saying, why did we jump from $2.99 to $3.99? Was that really necessary? And to a certain extent, I'm kind of the mind of, why didn't we try 50 cents first?
Yeah.
Where did the jump to $1? Because there's always traditionally been an incremental. We went from $1.99 to $2.50, $2.50 to $2.99. Why didn't we go to $3.50 to see if that worked? Is kind of my question at this point. I got to admit, I'm not complaining too much because it's not enough to get me to stop buying comics, because I'm still here and I'm still going to get them. I will say it is, when you start raising those prices, I've got a certain budget. And it is influencing titles outside of the show, unfortunately, that I would purchase. I've got to say, you know what, I'm getting a little bit more strapped now. Even with the thank goodness for the discounts that we do get through, like DCB service and stuff like that. But, it's got to be hard. On comic shops, it's got to be hard because now it costs more to buy the comics.
See, that's for me, I think that's who's going to get hit the worst. Mm-hmm. Will be the comic shops, because... Like right now, I buy everything from DCBS service because the discounts. I literally, those things. I need those, those discounts off of the titles, so I'm able to keep buying the same, basically almost the same.
They're
titles.
my local to a certain extent,
right? But we have some cool local shops around us, and there's a couple that I was like, for a while there, I was getting some of my titles only from my local shop. I was like, I'm going to support the local shop with these, 5 titles.
I still go to the local.
But I mean, I only go to the local if I want to see if I can pick up a variant cover, or if I, for some reason forgot to order it, or I don't want to wait for Thursday. On Wednesday, I don't want to wait till Thursday. I'll pick it up because we're lucky we get our stuff when it's shipped to us on Thursday, Friday, and sometimes I don't want to wait those 2 days, and I'll go to the local shop. But as a general rule, I used to have a couple titles that were only I would get at the shop just to support them. Well, now I'm like, though I'm not doing that. Everything I'm getting is coming from the service because I need that discount to keep going. And I dropped some of my non-DC stuff. There's a couple really cool stuff out there that I was picking up that I'm like, you know what? I'm going to stop getting these titles because, they're cool and they're fun. They were my palate cleansers, but I'm like, you know what? I got to make some changes, in my budget. I got to, cut back a couple titles here so I keep getting, the same stuff I'm getting. So there is a definite hit that is happening. Now,
I will say this, I didn't drop anything. I will say that it did influence some stuff that I was going to try that I didn't wind up trying because I'm like, my budget's kind of high right now. So I've got to, kind of stick with where I'm at. But like my books outside of DC that I'm getting, I'm pretty sold on. Like Madman Atomic Comics, I'm still picking that up. But Dark Tower books, the Stephen King, actually all the Stephen King stuff from Marvel, I'm still picking up and greatly enjoying. Buffy, I like Buffy the Vampire Slayer a great deal. I'm still picking that up. Thieves and Kings is a book. It's more of an independent book. That actually I'm not getting through DCBS right now because he did he's doing it this website. I don't know if it was solicited through Diamond or not, or how that worked out for it. But I would certainly, in the past, I've bought it from DCBService.com, and I didn't. The last one came out he released it in a trade instead of single issues. So, and I've got other books. I'm not going to go through everything that I'm reading outside of DC, but I haven't dropped anything because I'm really invested in them. Razzle by Jeff Smith's another one that I'm really enjoying, and anything Terry Moore does. But that's the tough part, though. There's other books that I'm interested in checking out. I like independence. I like image stuff. I like Marvel stuff, and it has influenced new things that I was interested in checking out, either in trade or where it's influenced me. Trades and hardcovers. I'm not picking up as many of those as I did before. The stuff that I was backlogging.
Yeah, it's hurting me.
If it's not a monthly read that I'm reading right away, I'm not grabbing it, and that's where it's hurting.
Yeah, but here's the thing, though. It's funny because as we're saying, it is hurting purchasing. I still I don't have too much of an issue with the change because, as you said, we're getting something for that extra $1 bump up. So far as the Booster Gold thing, that was
I loved having Blue Beetle in there.
I loved having that Blue Beetle issue. That was a real cool story that I read. I was like, yeah, okay. As long as it's stuff like this where it's an actual, real, meaty story that I can enjoy, I'm not going to have a problem.
It was Matthew Sturgis writing it again. So it was the same writer that we left off with, and I thought the Mike Norton art was a good choice.
Oh, definitely.
So it was an interesting choice, and it all seemed to work out. And it's a 3-part story arc so far with Blue Beetle, so I'm curious to see how that's all going to work out. But so far, I really liked it. I'd be curious to, and please feel free to call in the show if you were previously a Booster Gold fan or a Blue Beetle fan. How are you liking this? Because for me, I was reading both titles before, especially if you weren't reading one or the other. Like if you never read Booster Gold and you picked it up because of the Blue Beetle co-feature, do you like it? I mean, is this working for you? If you were a Booster Gold fan and now Blue Beetle's in there, is it worth the extra $1 to you to get this new story in there as well? We are getting more pages, so I do like that.
And I'm really looking forward to the Teen Titans Ravager. That's one I'm really just anticipating because I want to read that one.
I guess I'd be curious to hear from listeners, though, who weren't reading one or the other previously, and the other character is new to them. Is it something that first issue in you were like, well, okay, this is pleasant so far, I'm enjoying it, or is it something you're kind of like, wow, this is annoying? I'd rather give me back my $2.99 or anything like that, because to me, I'm enjoying it because I'm like, yeah, Blue Beetle's back, and it was good. It was really good. Yeah. We'll talk more. Our next episode is going to be all Speeding Bullets, and we're going to talk in depth about the storytelling. I wanted to keep this kind of spoiler-free just to have that discussion point. So that's how it influenced me. It really is trades and hardcovers versus it didn't affect my monthly reads. I'm still kept the same books, but it did affect collected editions. I'm not getting as many because I needed to come up with that money somewhere. So that was funny. But you actually stopped some books.
Non-DC stuff, I did stop.
Were they books that you were stockpiling, or were they books that you were reading regularly?
They were books I was stockpiling.
Okay.
You know,
do you think you would have stopped them if you were reading them regularly? Because the ones I didn't stop, like my stuff outside of DC, is stuff I was reading regularly. And
actually, probably not. If I was regularly getting to them and regularly reading them, I probably would have continued. But I was like, you know what? I've been stockpiling these things. They come out with trades for them, so I was like, I'll just shift it to trades and just go with trades with them for the future if I pick up the trades at all. I'm still not even sure I'm going to pick up the trades. And to be honest, they were titles
I was affected both of us the same way then.
Yeah.
Because to me, the reason why I stopped getting some of the trades that I was getting, I'm stockpiling these.
Yeah.
I kept the monthly books outside of DC that I was reading and enjoying, and the ones that I was like, because Madman Atomic Comics, it doesn't come out, it comes out pretty inconsistently. It's usually bi-monthly, but sometimes there's a bigger gap in between. But when I get them, I pick it up, I read it, and I genuinely enjoy it. So I'm like, I can't drop this in a million years. I love Michael Allred's art, and they did just an issue recently with Darwin Cook did a short story inside it that was really, really good.
Yeah, well,
so I mean, that type of stuff I would never drop in a million years.
Yeah, I know. It's it's kind of the same thing. If you have the, and I don't even want to say I think the stuff is bad that I dropped. I don't. It's just there's so much going on in DC that I was like, I gotta pick and choose here. I'm not going to keep spending money on stockpiling.
No,
and that's where it was final. And it ended up that the amount I dropped equaled the amount of the increase. So I'm not spending any more money.
Right.
On my comics.
Not either.
And I'm still getting all my DC titles that I was getting before. And I actually even picked up some new titles, number-wise. You think about, when we lost Robin, we gained Red Robin. We lost Nightwing, but we gained Batman and Robin. We lost, thing, and you start looking, okay, I lost this one, but I got this one. But in, the Vertigo universe, there was a couple extra stuff that have been added on. There have been a couple more DC stuff added on.
There was stuff that dropped in Vertigo, too, though.
Right.
Because I did find that with what we picked up from Vertigo, it was pretty. I think there was a couple extra titles maybe, but it pretty much was 1-to-1 because we lost a couple of really good, like Young Liars is ending, but we're gaining a couple new titles, so it's kind of like we lost Vinyl Underground.
Yeah,
I know. I'm sad.
I'm still hurting about that one.
Yeah, and I like some of the new ones. I mean, next week actually, I do have some in Speeding Bullets. I want to talk about things like The Unwritten and stuff like that. So there's been a couple issues of that book, which is pretty interesting, that I kind of like to talk about. So we have a number of things. Our Speeding Bullets, the reason why we're delaying Speeding Bullets to our next episode is because we have a whole heap of stuff we want to talk about there.
Yeah.
It really is throughout DC and outside of DC that I'd really like to chat about. So we have a big episode there. I just wanted to talk about this because the price increases, it's a popular issue on the net, and it's funny. It becomes an issue of how annoyed are you? Is it the business end versus the creative end? Like, to me, the creative end's what keeps me coming back. I wouldn't spend money on comics, period. I mean, $2.99 was expensive.
Yeah.
What keeps me coming back, though, is that the creators are just good. I mean, they really are.
They're putting out something I'm enjoying, so I'm going to spend the money to get what I want.
If I wasn't, it'd be gone. Yeah. And that's really, the honest truth is, if you're going to do a price increase, you better give me a product I'm enjoying. And so far, the Booster Gold one was, for a first issue like this, I loved Blue Beetle in the back. I loved it. So it felt like coming home again, and I think they would have made a huge mistake if they hadn't had Sturgis kick it off. I'm hoping Sturgis stays with it. I'm hoping that it's successful and Sturgis stays with it. Because I already love Booster Gold, but for that extra buck, I better care.
A little bit more.
Yeah, so it's cool.
Hey, Sean and Jim, it's Nathan from Comiccon. I just wanted to talk about Green Lantern number 40, part 2 of Agent Orange. I read part 1 of Agent Orange, and I just read part 2. And I was thinking that maybe the Orange Lanterns are all figments of Agent Orange imagination, or maybe people that he killed and then made it Agent Orange, or Orange Lanterns, because I don't think he wants to share the ring of the lantern at all, because he's too darn greedy. So I think that's really cool. Also, I kind of want to rant and rave about Secret Six. Wow, this book is great. Now, my favorite writer is definitely Jeff Johns. But I have to say one of my favorite writers has to be Gail Simone because of the series. The last issue of Secret Six was so hysterical. How Deadshot was trying to take care of those Nazi guys without letting his date know. Didn't want to be rude or anything. That was hysterical. Yeah, I guess that's it. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.
That's our MVP boy, Nathan.
I know.
Secret Six, I'm glad to hear him giving some Secret Six some love.
I know.
That date sequence was pretty darn awesome.
You know, that was just, as always, it's just the combination of action and humor that you get from Gail Simone. And,
I'm glad to hear that book getting some love, though.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because it's really, a lot of our listeners have been mentioning that book as a book they've been enjoying, so I'm glad to see that book's taking off. And because we're talking about with price increases and everything, and that one's still been $2.99, I believe. It's continued on to the $2.99 price point. But I always get worried when a new title kicks off that, it won't gain readers.
Yeah, and people won't give it the try because of the budget, because of, what's going on. But this is,
very unique. It's a very unique book to have in your library. It's really twisted.
It's wonderfully sick and twisted.
That's still my favorite book right now. If I had to pick a number one book, that would be honestly, if I had to go down to one title, I have to admit that would be the one.
Yeah. Honestly, that is my top title. That is the number one out there right now. And
so that's really, I love Nicholas Scott's art. I think it's just a gorgeous book. Even the fill-in issue with the fill-in art, the art was really good. But Nicholas Scott, there's something when Nicholas Scott and Doug Hazelwood are on that book, and Jason Wright, the colors, it just seems to all kind of flow together. Everything looks just great. It's just a fun book, and these are just characters who I've just come to really adore. And even when they tie into something like the Battle for the Cowl issue, we'll talk. We got to talk more about this next week because I really want to go into this. But even the Battle for the Cowl issue was just so cool because it tied into the event, but it was so natural for the Six to be involved in that event because of Bane and Catman. It's a great book, and he talks about Green Lantern number 40. Obviously, these constructs are generated in some way by Agent Orange. They're the people who've died. So I agree.
People there's only one Agent Orange, and when he kills somebody, he steals their identity.
They become his,
and they become his. They become mine,
right?
And so that's how he creates them. So it's
like his Pokemon.
Yeah,
gotta get them all.
You.
But it's a great book. So I'm glad that he mentioned that one.
Hey, Sean, Jim, it's Nathan again from Comiccon. I just wanted to rant and rave about another comic. It's called, I'm not sure if you guys pick it up, it's an Image comic called The Astounding Wolfman by Robert Kirkman. And I just think this is an amazing book. The pencil and anchor is Jason Howard, the letterer is Russ Wooten, colorists FCO and Ivan Placencia, probably butchering the name, but Plascencia, and the editor Aubrey Sitterson. I think this is an amazing book. It's about this man who's scratched by a werewolf, and you'll learn later who that werewolf is. He's a very special character, and he turns into a werewolf. I can't recall the guy's name, but he ends up almost like he pretty much murders his wife, or so everybody thinks. Everybody just hates him, including his daughter, who wants to kill him for murdering her mom. Now, what you really find out is that this vampire that was teaching the werewolf, which was named, this guy's werewolf secret identity is named Wolfman. It turns out the vampire actually murdered the wife, but no one knows that. So now Wolfman's in jail, and it's a really good book. It's really gory and violent, but I just think it's a great read, and you guys should definitely try and pick it up when you get a chance. Also, another comic by Robert Kirkman is Invincible. Now, the trade paperbacks have been coming out very slowly, but that's all I read is the trade paperbacks. And I just love this book. This book is so awesome. Once again, it's very violent and gory, but it's all about this kid that's father is the best superhero ever. And then it turns out he's not really the best superhero. Now, I'm not sure if you guys picked it up, but I'm not going to spoil anything. You guys should definitely pick up the trades of this series. I guess that's it. I guess I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.
First time we ever met Nathan, I talked to him about Invincible. It was one of those. I remember the first New York visit that we did, and Invincible is one of those books that I collect Invincible through hardcover. They do these ultimate collections of it that they're worth waiting for. He's right. It seems to take forever to get them, but when you get them, they're gorgeous hardcovers. They're like almost like what the Absolutes are. They're just a little bit larger.
Cool.
And Invincible's the best way to say it. It's like Ultimate Spider-Man. It's that type of storytelling. It's fun, adventure, superhero stories. So if you're a Spider-Man fan, Invincible's very easy to latch onto. It's oversimplifying, but the character has that kind of quality to him. So I don't want to. I mean, his father's an alien, and that's how he gets his powers because his mom's human, his dad's alien, and he has all these issues because of it. But I don't want to say too much because I don't want to spoil for anybody, but it's a fun. Anybody who's a Spider-Man fan, pick up an issue of Invincible and give it a shot. Every so often they discount one of the monthly issues to make it as a jump-on try-up book, but it's a good one if you're not sure about picking it up. Go ahead and pick up a single issue of it and read the book and see if it's for you. But I get the hardcovers of that one. That's one that I will not stop getting the hardcovers of because I enjoy it so much. He does Walking Dead as well. Same writer for Walking Dead.
Oh, okay.
Kirkman. So
okay,
you've read him from Walking Dead.
Okay, I'm like, well, it's funny because I have one of the Invincible trades. It's in my stack of trades that I have to read that I will eventually get to, and every single time someone talks about Invincibles, it's always the same thing. Oh, it's just a great story. You just got to, and it's one of those things where I've never heard anybody bash Invincibles. Invincibles, whatever. Untouchables.
That's actually the character's name.
Yeah, I know.
So he's not plural.
Well, hey, I don't know.
That's like me calling you Tootses. Makes no sense.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. It doesn't make any sense. So why are you saying it?
Well, you were saying Invincibles, so I said Tootses.
Well, I'm thinking Incredibles.
Or Tootsies, however
I'll be honest with you,
it.
every single time someone says Invincibles, I do think Incredibles. Mm-hmm. So that's why I put the
But
S
they didn't call him Mr. Incredibles. It was Mr. Incredible.
But he was Mr. Incredible, but together they were the Incredibles.
Yeah, but this is one guy. He's not Spider-Man.
I'm still thinking Incredibles.
Nightwings. Tootses. Sorry.
No, you're not.
No, I'm really not. I'm just trying to be polite and failing. Now to touch on Astounding Wolfman, where you started with, I've never read that, and but I like Kirkman's stuff, so it's something. It's a great recommendation, and it's something that I would definitely pick up and trade. I do read Kirkman's stuff and trade, and it's funny when I talk about I've cut back on trades, but there's certain books that I would not stop, and Invincible and Walking Dead. I think it's one of those that I've enjoyed reading them so much in collected editions with large volumes of them. It kind of works the way Vertigo does for me. There's certain Marvel titles I get that way too. I'd go to Dark Tower that way, except they don't put all of the Dark Tower content. There's prose pieces in the back that don't go to the hardcovers. So yeah, it's
what you want.
Usually the hardcover you get more. So I picked up the first hardcover of the Dark Tower, Gunslinger Born, figuring I'll go to hardcovers in this because Marvel's hardcover program's gorgeous. I mean, they do these wonderful collected hardcovers. There was less in the hardcover, so I was like, what? It's kind of baffling to me. So but wait, here's the idiotic thing. I've got to admit this. I have all the hardcovers for the Dark Towers. I just won't get rid of the monthlies. So I've got the hardcovers and the monthlies for it. So I mean, I'm saying this like I'm like bashing them because they're really the hardcovers are gorgeous. So I'm still getting them. So yeah, it's stupid. It makes no sense. I am. There's something.
And that's coming from me.
You know what? I'm a huge Stephen King fan though. So it is a guy. One of my coworkers, Dan Rich, and I. We're both big Stephen King fans, so when I pick up the Dark Tower stuff for me, I will get a second copy for him and take it to work because he's not really a comic collector, but our connection is that we read the Stephen King novels and we also, now follow the comics. And the Dark Tower series is some of our favorite work from him. And these collected editions, we're both getting the hardcovers and the single issues. So, yeah, there's all kinds of problems. I'm just admitting it. But I happen to be a big fan of what Peter David and Robin Firth are doing with Dark Tower and how true they are sticking to the original story. Because really what they're doing is they're taking something that Stephen King told in flashback sequences and they're putting the history in chronological order and retelling Roland of Gilead's story in chronological order. And Jay Lees did the artwork on the first series. I'm trying to remember if it was the same artwork all the way through. Had to go back and check. But it's just gorgeous. It's a well-presented series. So it's a good jumping on point for any fan who's like, I wanted to check out Stephen King's Dark Tower. The comic series is a great way to see if it's for you. But we're really digressing from DC stuff, but it was interesting. It's funny. I'm saying right now that I am cutting back, which I am, but the certain bad habits that I've had, I'm still keeping. So
Right.
it's I have cut back. I really have on trades and things like that. But the ones that I've really enjoyed, I'm still getting. So it is funny. Price increases aside, I thank God for DCBService.com because you know what? I will say this: would I have the hardcovers right now if it wasn't for DCB Service? No. I buy them as they come out, and I get them, or I'll get them from in-stock trades and the discount. If I didn't get the discount, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
So I mean, the habits are financed by the fact that like Adventure Comics #1, I'm getting it for 99 cents. Okay, that's a $3.99 book.
Yeah.
I'll
buy that for $1.
Well, I mean, that's what it is. I mean, it really is that issue. So those are huge. They enable me to keep certain books. Otherwise, I'd have to start taking a look at what I just said before. Secret Six is my favorite book right now. I'd have to start prioritizing those like that. And that would be the #1. I'd say, okay,
there'd be some books
that's going nowhere.
And I'm glad I don't worry too much about that because there's a lot of titles that if I had to, I know what I would cut. You know, and they're the titles that when I'm buying my comics, I look and I go, okay, do I want to get these? Every time I read it, I enjoy it, but do I need this? I'm at the point where I'm admitting I don't need some titles, but I want the titles, so I keep getting them. If I didn't have, if I'd lost my job or if I had something happen where I had more expenses coming in or whatnot, there are titles that I would drop.
You know what I'm not getting
there
anymore?
Are titles I would get rid of.
I'm not getting every showcase.
Yeah.
I was before. I'm still getting showcases, but I'm picking and choosing between them. I was disappointed. I will do a little mini angry rant. I got Showcase Green Lantern #4. Those books were all over 500 pages of comics. That didn't crack 400. Same price, $16.99. Now, I got it at the discount through DCB Service, so amen, DCB Service. But even so, this is on newsprint. Which, that was the whole point of the whole thing. Where are my 500? Half the fun of the showcases for me, when I've been getting them, it was Green Lantern. And I'm going to keep getting
an ungodly number of comics for a reasonable price.
You're going to get a run at that price. I mean, it's great. But I'm a little irritated. Where are my 500 pages of comics? What was the decision with that? So I don't know. I'm a little... I mean, wait, let me take it one step further, and not everyone might agree with me on this one. Okay, it was $16.99. Rather than them dropping over 100 pages from the book, charge me an extra $2 and give me my 500 pages. I want my 500 pages in my showcases. Where are they at? So that's my rant. Showcases need over 500 pages of comics. I want that little logo back on there. There's something infinitely satisfying about holding that big tome and feeling like a phone book. This feels like a phone book where somebody ripped off part of it.
You went from a phone book in Cleveland to a phone book in
a neighborhood.
Euclid.
I've got my neighborhood phone book now.
Yeah,
that's what it is. That's a good analogy, Toots. I promise you it's only this episode.
Because I'm eyeballing that hammer right there that you got on the ground.
I can't promise there won't be any Where's What Not Now. But,
that I'm expecting.
Yes. See what our listeners do now, because they've been getting feisty with Where's What Not Now. I'm loving it. There's some great ones out there for you.
I got to hop on.
Oh, you've got a Soap Opera Weekly cover on there as well. Yeah, there's a couple of really good Where's What Not Nows.
I gotta jump on it.
So definitely check the website if you guys haven't been. Where's What Not Nows are really funny. There's some great articles up there. We got some new Life in the Gutters. If you check in Bulleteer Rants, we've got another one from David Faust on Batman and Robin #1. It's just a great comment, and we got another one that's coming. So I don't want to say anything about it yet because that hasn't materialized yet, but I was just contacted by another friend of the show who would like to do an article probably. So we'll see if that how that works out, and I'll formally announce it on the show when it comes about. But thanks. And the Bullets Your Rants section, just for everybody knows, that's a section for informal articles. So if you don't want to do one on a regular schedule, just want to kind of throw one up there whenever you feel like it. You can do one once a year, whatever you want to do. Just something you want to rant and rave about that you've been enjoying, or just talk about comics in general. That's what that section's made for. It's meant to be free form. You don't have to stick to any schedule. You can just kind of do whatever you want. I'm trying to do whatever I can to keep the website. The website, in my eyes, is totally listener generated. So whatever you guys want to do, if you've got something that you want to get your voice out there, it's kind of a central location and place for people to just kind of get creative and do whatever you want. It's kind of like, how we have audio comments and voicemails on the show. Well, that's what that's for. And they all go towards our contest. I do want to say something for anybody who, if you call us on the voicemail line and you've called like a few times or something like that and you want them to count towards the contest, just send me an email on Ragingcontest, because I want to count voicemails because that's show participation. So it's easy if you could just send me a quick email and just say, hey, Sean, I called like a few times, can you please put me on the call list? That way I have your email address. So that's how we'll put all the email addresses in a hat, pull them out, and whoever's we get is the one that gets our next contest entry. Our next
Sean, what email is that?
That's ragingcontest@gmail.com, Jim.
Ragingcontest@gmail.com?
Yes, Jim. But you can't enter.
I can't enter. Because you know I was going to do that. Hey, Sean, I sent you some emails from Vegas.
Yeah.
Some voicemails from Vegas.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be kind of anticlimactic. Jim won? What?
Hey, Sean and Jim. This is Scott in Simpsonville, South Carolina. Hadn't talked to you guys in a while, so I wanted to leave you a message, let you know a couple things that I've been thinking about. I really have to encourage people to, if they haven't been, to pick up the latest issue of Jonah Hex. I've not been a really big Jonah Hex fan. I bought the first couple issues or so of the current title, and I enjoyed it, but there was so much other good stuff coming out that I just didn't continue to buy that. But I saw the latest issue on the stand with that it was going to be a 6-part story. So I picked that up, really enjoyed that. I have to say the scene where Hex saw the tornado with all the Indians and horses falling out of the sky, that was pretty hilarious, and I had to laugh out loud when I saw that. But I'll be continuing to pick that title up. That was really enjoyable. Tiny Titans I'm still really enjoying. I have to say I'm lucky enough to be able to I had emailed Art Baltazar a few months ago about just curious if he was selling any of his artwork, and I was able to get the cover for the Faces of Mischief issue. I got a page from where Darkseid was the lunch lady, and he said something like, this is a finals crisis. I got that page. I got a page where the Titans were in Wayne Manor having a comic book party with Alfred. So I encourage anybody, if you're a fan of Art Baltazar and his work on Tiny Titans, if you go to his website and email him, he emailed me back almost immediately. Real nice guy, and like I said, I was lucky enough to pick up a few pages of his art, and I hate to say this because he's probably going to go up if he hears this, but the prices were very reasonable. I know some artwork can be just outrageous, but he was very, very reasonable. So the kids will be having that framed in their room pretty soon. Let's see, what else? Drawer boxes. I had probably about 10 long boxes of the drawer boxes, and really, like you say, when they're stacked on top of each other and you don't have the drawer boxes, you kind of forget about those boxes are at the bottom, but when you have the drawer boxes, I'm finding myself pulling out stuff and rereading stuff from years and years ago. It's so much easier to get to, and after hearing, you guys talking about it again, I went back and ordered about 25 more boxes, and you definitely get a big discount if you order it directly from them. I bought some from my local comic book dealer here, but it's definitely more reasonable if you order it in a larger bulk from them directly. So I encourage people, if you don't have drawer boxes, you should really try them out. I don't think you'll go back to the old boxes if you do. And lastly, I'd like to encourage people, and Sean and Jim also, if you haven't been to the Heroes Con in Charlotte, it's coming up on the 19th, 20th, and 21st of June. Really should consider going to a Heroes Convention. I've seen some big ads in the back of some of the DC Comics for the Heroes Convention, and it's a really good convention. It's a smaller convention, but there's going to be there's always a lot of good creators there. I think George Perez, Adam Hughes, Matt Fraction. If you go to heroesonline.com, you get a complete rundown of everybody who's going to be there. But they always have big names. There's not long lines to the creators. It's just a family-friendly atmosphere. I've probably gone to about the last 20 years. I've been to probably about 12 or 13 of them. They seem to get bigger and bigger every year, but it's really, really a good con, and I encourage anybody that's in the area or can fly out to come to the Heroes Con in Charlotte. It's a really great convention. I hope I hope Sean and Jim can get there sometime. But I know this ran kind of long, so I'll let you guys go and really enjoying all your hard work on the podcast, and hope you have many, many more years of it. Thanks again, guys.
It is stuff like that makes it easy to come back and record every week.
Yeah.
It was Jim and I just have our annual summit, as far as how are we going to work the show so we can keep, because our schedules have been crazy lately.
Absolutely psychotic
Yes.
lately.
And it's not show related. I mean, like when we do this, we love this. So I mean, this is a lot of fun, and it really is this type of interaction with you guys that really keeps it going. But we were taking a look at, like, what can we do to kind of make it easier for us to prep and get ready for the show and still get the content out that we want to get to you guys. It's one of the reasons why you're finally hearing Long Halloween. This is the fruition of the Raging Bullets Summit. But, we got to get this going. So we finally got it, and we're just doing it today. And then next week's going to be all speeding bullets, so lots of current books we're going to be talking about next week. But we're kind of getting smarter on how we're planning the show. But it is funny. He's talking about conventions coming up. We wanted to go to the Metropolis one, and we weren't able to hit that.
Yeah.
That was my wife's first weekend on break. She's a teacher as well. She teaches kindergarten, and that was literally when she was wrapping up. It's actually this weekend going on.
Right, yeah.
And actually, I do want to say, if anybody is going to that that Superman celebration in Metropolis, Illinois, if you're there and you want to come on the show and talk about the con, and when we kind of loosen things up when we do con talk. I know there's a few of our friends who are independent creators who are there, who are listeners of the show. Please, if you want to come on, we can pump your book too. I mean, let's talk about all that stuff. I want to talk about the con experience because people want to hear, what was the con like? Do I want to attend this con? I want to go next year to it. You could become a citizen of Metropolis when you go to this one.
Yeah, I heard about that. That's kind of neat.
Yeah, Lynn Workman, a friend of the show, sent me a couple emails about it. He posted in our forum about it as well. And certainly I'll probably shoot Lynn an email, or if anybody else has gone to that con, or you want to pop on and just give us a quick chat about that.
Or if you want to send us a voicemail, you want to call into the show.
Yeah, any of those things, one or the other. I mean, it's real easy to do either or. Because last time, even if you and I aren't both here together, I've had listeners come on when I've just been here. We've done a quick Skype thing, just to chat about cons. People always want to hear about them. Besides the Heroes Con, which I want to go to, and I've never heard anybody say a bad thing about the Heroes Con.
Yeah,
that's a con. So. Kudos to that one. But I also want to talk about, in Cleveland, there's the Screaming Tiki Cleveland Supercon that's coming. It's July 10th to the 12th. This is here in our backyard. So we're definitely going to that one.
Yeah, we'll be there on that one. Yeah.
I'm going to go every day, 10th, 11th, and 12th.
Probably.
I'm definitely going to
I'm saying I'll probably be there with you as well. So
It's www.screamingtikicon.com. It's July 10th to the 12th. Sam Witwer, Doomsday, is going to be there. Michael Rosenbaum, Lex Luthor from Smallville, is going to be there. Edward James Olmos from Battlestar Galactica. Ray Park, Darth Maul, is going to be there. Supergirl Helen Slater. Aaron Gray from Buck Rogers. Daniel Logan, who's Boba Fett. Comic creators Todd DeZago, Craig Rousseau, Michael Sangiacomo, Tom Zoller from Love and Capes,
Cool.
and more are going to be there because Tom Zoller's local to us.
Yeah.
And the Batcopter's going to be there. I'm looking for more comic guests because I know they're going to do that, but I mean, that list is great as it was. The Batcopter was at the one in Niles, Ohio, and you could get in and go on a ride in the Batcopter.
I wonder if they're still doing
It's
that.
a restored one. It's what they did is they got one of the Batcopters and the guy fully restored it, and it works. And they were doing rides. So
Oh, dude, that'd be fun.
we got pictures with it. We didn't. If I had known ahead of time that was something that was an option, I would have done it. So I'm hoping they haven't announced on there whether or not they're officially doing the rides or anything for it, but it wasn't announced on the website last time. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed that it's the same guy and he's taking people up.
Cool.
Because that looked awesome, man, to see
Yeah.
somebody take off in a Batcopter. But it was a neat convention last time. It was more of a small community convention, but they had a ton of creators. Art and Franco were at the one in Niles, so I'm hoping that...
Hopefully they'll be there because those are some great guys.
Yeah.
You know, we've had them on the show before. We've talked to them at the cons. They're just these two really cool dudes that are just they're fun and they're great guys to hang out with.
They're doing alternating work now. Did you read Power Shazam? I'm sorry, not Power Shazam. That was the old series. Billy Batson and the Magic Shazam,
Yes, I am
number
reading
5.
it, yes.
Did you the Art and Franco?
Yeah.
That was their first issue, taking over and doing not taking over, but they're writing it now with Mike Kunkel. When is it Kunkel? I'm probably butchering the last name.
We're butchering the last name.
'Cause
Sorry.
I've loved Billy Batson and the Magic of Shazam all the way through. The idea behind this is to keep that book on a more regular schedule. Art and Franco are going to be doing a few issues here and there to keep it regular, and it was really fun. It had a little bit of a different flavor, but what was nice about it was it's a different storytelling experience than what we get from them from Patrick the Wolf Boy and Tiny Titans.
Yeah.
Both of which I'm a huge fan of. My students, I picked up Patrick the Wolf Boy for my students. I hadn't read it. My kids were talking about it so much, I ended up reading the copies that I bought for myself anyway. That's a fun read, too. So
Yeah.
I'm going to recommend not just their Tiny Titans work. Check out them with Billy Batson, The Magic of Shazam. Check out them with Patrick the Wolf Boy. Great creators and just a lot of fun, great comics. I'll pick up anything they do just because they know how to keep stories charming.
yeah.
I mean, that's kind of the best way to say it. Billy Batson and the Magic of Shazam, when they do it, is not another Tiny Titans. And it just shows that they are more than a one-trick pony. These guys can do what they do with Tiny Titans, which is more... It's kind of, the way I look at it is kind of like the Saturday Night Live of the Johnny DC books. It's got little sketches and things like that, and it just works. It all comes together and flows into one big program. Every episode of Tiny Titans. Well, now you've got Billy Batson and the Magic of Shazam. This is more of they're succeeding at doing a regular monthly book style approach to it, and it's great to see them do this because they really crafted a really cool story in it. So it's this very different flavor, and it's something, if you're fans of their work, you get the same humor that you're used to with them, but presented in a way that fits that particular universe.
Yeah.
I am a big Shazam fan right now.
Yeah, this is, you know what? I never really got everyone's strength and attachment to Billy Batson as Shazam, and just the duality of the kid who's now the big guy, and all. I never really got it, but reading this Johnny DC stuff, I'm starting to understand people's attraction and just their draw to the innocence that was, Shazam, because you have this kid in this superhero body, and he's got to do, does a superhero thing, but he does look at life as a child. Even though he's got the wisdom of Solomon, there is still that kid in there. And I'm kind of understanding it, and it's actually making me, I'm looking at picking up some of the old Shazam stuff so I can read this hero that everyone,
Power Shazam's
yeah.
a great series.
Yeah,
For anybody that's enjoying Billy Batson, the Magic Shazam, and just wants more, back issues of Power Shazam is a great thing to pick up.
Yeah, I've started looking at the back issues of Power Shazam. Maybe
Did you read the Jeff
stuff.
Smith stuff I gave you yet?
No, I haven't yet. The Monster Society?
Yeah,
I haven't.
Because that really is like the prequel, I guess, to the current series. In theme.
Right.
So it's same Mary that you see now, the little tiny Mary and all that stuff. So it totally fits. That's great too.
One quick thing, though, is comment on Jonah Hex. Mm-hmm. If you remember when we had our Tiger Woods was the Jonah Hex, and we had that. You gave me that assignment to have my dad read the Jonah Hex.
Oh, jeez, we totally forgot about that.
Yeah, completely forgot about that. And I did have Dad read it, and I just, now here's the thing: you got to understand about my dad. My dad is not a fun reader. He reads a newspaper for information, or if he's got an owner's manual, he's got to read. He reads it. He doesn't just sit down and read a book. That's my mom. Okay. Like how your mom also is a reader. My mom's the reader in my family.
Right.
It's so Dad was like, "You want me to read a comic book?" Okay. Now my dad is also very understanding towards his children because he's a cool dad. So he sat down and he read it, and he immediately picked up on the whole Clint Eastwood thing. Cool. And he's like, "Oh, that's what, Clint Eastwood?" I'm like, "Yeah, kind of." Yeah, I was like, "Oh, okay." And he kind of liked it because he likes westerns, but he completely missed the whole Tiger Woods thing. Now, when I told him about our discussion, I got this look from him that I don't think I've ever really seen. It was kind of like what the hell are you talking about? And then
many a time after we're done recording, I wonder what the hell we were talking about.
So then after I explained to him what my rationale behind how Jonah Hex is the Tiger Woods of the DC universe, I got that, oh, yeah, I see it now. Kind of look. I was just like, okay, Dad.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I feel that way right after we record most of the time, so that's a pretty normal reaction.
Yeah.
That's probably about 90% of our listeners like, what the hell are they just talking about? That's funny. I'm glad you followed up on that.
Oh, yeah.
Are you still reading Jonah Hex Month?
Yeah. I'm still reading Jonah.
Yeah.
It's one of the, I will admit that it is one of those titles that if financial, things were to change, I would drop it. Wow. Because I enjoy reading it. I think it's a great Western story, and I think it's a great thing. And I am thinking maybe going to trades with it and just be a trade guy with it. But it is something I enjoy reading, so it's like, I don't know. Right now, I'm still getting.
I couldn't go to trade on it.
See, I could. I honestly, I will admit, I enjoy it.
I'm not saying you're wrong. It's one of those. I'm so glued to Jonah Hex. It's 44 issues in now, and I just love it. And that's a compliment to Gray and Palmiotti. It's one of those books I get. No, I'm not saying you're.
No, here's the other thing. I say this, but of course, I remember I went back and picked up.
I know.
The back issues. I have the full run of Jonah Hex.
No, I guess what I'm saying though is it's one of those
tough.
books.
It is a tough call for me.
It's one of those books I worry about with the price increases that maybe people won't try it.
Yeah.
Because their budget's getting tighter. I get worried about books like that. I get worried about Secret Six.
Yeah.
Just because it doesn't feature Batman or Superman or Wonder Woman. It's one. And I get worried about a book like that, just because I don't get worried about it once people try it. So I don't think it's one of those books like how can you drop Secret Six? I would love to have a conversation with somebody who wants to drop it. It's. Maybe if it's not their cup of tea from the beginning, I could understand that. But somebody who's been a regular reader of it and been enjoying it, I don't know how you could drop that book.
Yeah,
that's kind of one of those. It's like I think if you get it, if it's your type of humor and you get it and you get into that book, it's one of those you just adore and you become attached to. But it's books like that. I just get worried about new readers trying them, and that's one of those things where I'm hoping. I go back to the digital thing. I think there is an audience and a profit margin for comics. Comics can be downloaded digitally illegally. Why are comic companies not making money off of it? What are they so worried about? Yeah. it's already
out there. Yeah,
you're not.
The genie has been released from the bottle.
Yeah,
you can't put it back in. So make some money. Yeah,
yeah. And it's not going to kill the comic shops because I still want the paper product. When I keep saying the digital, what I'm saying is I will read more stuff if there's digital.
Yeah.
Like I subscribe to the Marvel Digital Unlimited. I'm reading a lot of Marvel titles on there that I won't pick up in paper because my budget stopped. It's not changing what I'm buying. It's titles that I wouldn't have bought anyway, but now I'm enjoying and appreciating and I'm putting some money towards. And they've got exclusive things there. I talked about Kid Colt and stuff like that. I want to see DC have something like that. I think the way to go, though, is like what iTunes is doing. Start making digital releases available so people can read them on their computers. People are going to support. They'll pay and they'll support them. You're not going to get people who are buying the paper product who are going to go, geez, I'm going to stop collecting paper because of this.
Right.
This is a different audience you're looking for. The people who are reading it for free that are saying, I'd love to support this book. And those are the people that I think you're going to grab. And I think you're going to grab a new profit margin from that. I don't know why they're waiting. I don't get it. I'm totally baffled. I applaud the companies that are trying to do things through iTunes and through these other download sites. One Stop Comics, I think, is the name of the other one. I'm sorry, I apologize if I'm doing this off the top of my head. But there's sites right now where you can download comics legally, digitally. that are out there, and you can do search on the net for digital comics, where you can download them, you can read them on the web and stuff like that, and check some of these things out. It's new, it's cheap ways to explore more comics for those of you that are saying, geez, I want to read more, but I can't afford to. Well, this is a way to expand your reading library and support people who are giving you new methods and, way to think a little outside the box. It's not something to take away from the comic shops. I don't mean it that way. It's something for new. But I don't think we're the target audience of that stuff anyway. It's new readers. It's people who are more internet and web-based than the classic comic fans who like the paper. And I'm never going to give up my paper comics.
No.
Yeah. As long as they got them, I'm here.
Yeah, there is something about the smell and the feel of a paper comic in your hand that just...
But there's an audience that doesn't care about that, who would buy 99 cents digital comics because they think that would, that digital medium would be something new for them. And I would love to see that money go into the company's pocket and then into the creator's pocket. And I think that's ultimately going to help the paper product from price increases as well. You can cap at some point and say, look, comics are making money digitally, they're making money off of trades, they're making money off the monthlies. We are able to financially afford to keep at this price point and still make profits in all these different margins. It's got to diversify. It's got to balance out. And that's what I'm saying with the point on it, is not to eliminate one, it's make it more available. That's my pet peeve. So,
hi, Sean and Jim. Jeff Nelson, big fan of the show. Think you guys are great. I just got done listening to episode 162, and I wanted to chime in about Barbara Gordon and potentially being Batgirl. I think it is an absolutely horrible idea. I don't like it at all. I love her as Oracle. I love the idea that she overcame an obstacle. There was a little bit of talk on the show about her becoming Batgirl and how that might be a inspiration to, people with various disabilities. I feel like the opposite is true. I think that the real hope for a person with disabilities is to overcome the disabilities without the magic wand kind of cure. So I feel real strongly about this, and of course I'd read it. I'd read the new Batgirl if it was Dick Grayson. But I absolutely love the show. Thanks a lot, and keep up the good work, guys.
I actually agree with him. I think that I want to see Barbara Gordon stay as Oracle. I don't think do you think she... where are you at right now?
Where am I at?
Right, and I'm not saying right or wrong on
right
this.
Right now, I do not think it is Barbara Gordon.
Okay.
I'm not sure who is Batgirl, but I think Barbara is still going to be Oracle in the chair. I'd like to see it be Misfit or be Cassandra Cain.
Yeah.
So I would prefer that it was Cassandra Cain, because I've gotten to know she's a real cool character, and I don't want to see her give up the mantle as Batgirl. Have you seen this yet? Oh yeah, the
new one.
Yeah, and that does not look like Cassandra. That does not look like Misfit.
Really? I think that looks a lot like Misfit.
You think that looks like Misfit?
I do. Or
I was thinking that looks more like Barbara, to be honest.
No, I'm thinking that looks like either... that doesn't look old enough to be Barbara. That looks like younger.
Really?
I think that looks like either Spoiler or Misfit.
Well, if I had to pick between Spoiler and Misfit, I would say that would be Misfit. I don't think it's going to be Spoiler. I think Spoiler is going to be something else.
I think it's Misfit.
So I wouldn't have a problem with Misfit being Batgirl. I would want an explanation as to what happened to Cassandra, because she's a cool character. And when she had her little miniseries, I was like, man, I was getting into the character. I was getting into her as Batgirl. So now, I don't know. It's one of those things, I'm going to read it when it comes out, and I am holding judgment until then. Now, if they did completely left field and pulled somebody else, I'd be like, huh? But I don't know, I'm leaning that it's not going to be Barbara, probably Misfit.
Okay. Yeah, I'm still sticking with Misfit. I've been a big Misfit supporter. I'm thinking it would be Misfit. I'm hoping, because that character needs to be in some capacity.
Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking the book's going to, on some level, be there's got to be like some of the Birds of Prey characters, right? Yeah. If Oracle's running the show,
if Oracle's
Batgirl might be the lead, but
or is it Batgirl and Huntress?
Or is it like a new version of Birds of Prey with a new team she's putting together in Gotham Heroes, with Batgirl just being one of them? I don't know. I'm curious. So they have me wondering.
Oh yeah, I was definitely in on that thing from the beginning, and we're going to see what happens. But yeah, it's the whole, and I'm wondering how much of those are red herrings. They say, no, these aren't red herrings. Well, are they? I don't know. We'll see.
I do not want to see Batgirl walk. I mean, Oracle walk, I should say. I'd like to see Batgirl walk, but I don't want to see Oracle walk.
That would be an interesting superhero.
What?
You know, a Batgirl that was in the chair and had to improvise and adapt and overcome.
Yeah, but we already have that. That's Oracle.
Yeah. Well, you know, it could be one of those things where it's Oracle, you know, and she always considers herself as Batgirl. You know, in her mind, she always thinks of herself as Batgirl. Like, you know, Bruce always if Bruce is thinking to himself, he's thinking Batman. You know, it could be one of those type of things.
I almost think it needs to be a teenager though, because of Batwoman.
Yeah.
It seems to me like to have two.
It's part of the thing with, you know, we wouldn't see Dick Grayson going back to being a Robin.
No,
it's her past.
Right. So I'm almost thinking this has to be a teenager. It has to be like a Cassandra Cain or Misfit.
See, Misfit is probably the best option because
Misfit's my number one choice right now.
She'll bring that, you know, that joy and that happiness, that sunshine that Batgirl kind of was. You know, she was more, you know, whereas Cassandra is a little bit darker. She's an assassin. She's a butt kicker. She could seriously do some damage.
My other thought, though, is it spoiler based on recent conversations she's had with Robin, where she's not giving it up, and yet she's taking to what he says to heart and getting some proper training from Barbara. That's why I'm part of me saying maybe spoiler. I don't know. I'm my number one choice is still Misfit, but there is that part of me that's in the spoiler camp. I still don't think it's Cassandra though, and I'm really worried about that because I love her.
I am worried about her. What is going to happen to her?
Yeah.
I don't want to see her just disappear. I want an explanation. I don't want to see her die. You know, and unfortunately, that's going to be probably that has a strong possibility of being the explanation. You know, but what happens to her? Does she go somewhere else? Does she change? Does she, you know, realize, you know what? There's so much out there in life I want to live. I don't want to be Batgirl.
I'm 40% Misfit, 30% spoiler, 19% Cassandra Cain, 1% Toots.
I'm doing the math going, okay, he's got leftovers. Yeah, kind of saw that one coming.
So you're in the running.
I'm in the running.
You are in the running.
Hey, I think I would look dang cute in that Batgirl outfit.
I would pay big money. I would pay big money to see a Where's What Not Now if you had a Batgirl outfit.
Come on, I knew that was coming, so I'm just throwing it out there. Here, let me just lob this one up for you guys to hit a home run with. So have fun with it, guys. And girls and females, we got, you know, anybody can do it.
That's right.
I don't want to be considered, you know.
It's funny though. Cassandra to me has some. What happens to Cassandra? She got like a big target painted on her or something. Unless she evolves into a new hero, that'd be my bigger preference.
Yeah, oh, definitely. I would like to see her. Definitely, that would be a cool thing. But I don't know. I don't know. I don't see it happening because they haven't done anything with her. She had her limited series, and then that was it. And
well, she was a big player in Battle for the Cowl.
She had a part, but it wasn't like huge.
She helped put together the whole network.
Yeah, but
and that wonderful segment with her and Huntress and everything.
Well, no, hold on. I'm not saying it was bad. I'm just saying, you know. But in the end, you know, where was she when some of the final battles was going on?
Well, but where was anybody when the final battles were going on? It was really meant to be Dick Grayson versus Jason Todd.
Yeah,
which is what we got.
But even the lead up to it, they didn't mention her.
Oh, yes, they did.
No.
Go back and reread. She was mentioned right in the beginning of the first issue.
She was?
Absolutely. And she was mentioned in as putting together the network.
Well, she was mentioned in Network and all that.
No. She was mentioned in the actual book, Battle for the Cowl.
She was?
And she was in there.
I got to reread.
Yeah, go reread, yeah.
I felt like she disappeared.
No. Well, I mean, in the main book, yes. She made an appearance in the beginning, but the main book didn't focus on anybody else in the supporting cast. That's what the satellite books were all about. You know, that's where Azrael was. That's where Jim Gordon was. All those people were on the outside. They weren't in that because that story was specifically about Batman's sons. So, you know, while people made appearances in there, they really basically did disappear out into. That's why the one-shots came about.
Yeah.
Jim Gordon appeared more in the one-shots than he did, for example, in Battle for the Cowl. Those characters appeared at the end of it as in kind of like the epilogue more than anything else. So it's interesting. I don't know. I mean, she wasn't. It wasn't like you could sit there and say, "Geez, this was the Batgirl book," but she made a few appearances in there.
Okay.
The network and all that. The network issue, especially.
Yeah.
The network was the main. I mean, the network was definitely the main focus for her. But I don't know. We're in firm agreement though that poor girl's got a target on her.
Yeah, and I hate to say that, and we'll see what happens.
Hi, Sean and Jim. This is Kent Hare in Natchitoches, Louisiana, a.k.a. Absent-Minded Professor on various comics fora. I'm just now listening to episode 161 and Nathan's Dad's Call, where he mentions the Denny O'Neil DC Universe novel, Helltown. For a second there, I thought he was stealing my thunder. I've been reading the most recent novel by Kevin J. Anderson, Enemies and Allies, about the first meeting of Superman and Batman set in the 1950s Cold War era. And I've been thinking about ringing y'all up to throw in a few words for the prose novels corner of the DC Universe. I only started listening to y'all about a year or so ago, and I've only listened to a few episodes from before that. But I don't think I've ever heard y'all discuss these. Are there any of those novels that you've really liked? They are of greatly varying quality, but I'd like to just quickly run down the ones I've liked the most, in no particular order. As I said, I'm currently reading Anderson's Enemies and Allies, and I'm really enjoying it. Oddly enough, that's even though I'm not really a huge fan of Kevin J. Anderson's other science fiction writings. With this novel, however, and maybe even more so, The Last Days of Krypton a couple of years ago, he really nails the spirit of the DCU. In both, he picks up bits and pieces from various incarnations and imaginings of the characters and the worlds and blends them into a classic presentation. For instance, his Krypton owes a lot to Smallville, the movies, and the Silver Age, kind of like Jeff Johns' current portrayal does, in fact. I highly recommend either of these novels. Going way, way back, I remember with great fondness Elliot S. Magen's pair of Superman novels that came out about the same time as the first two Christopher Reeve movies. Not really tied to the movies, although they were marketed as such. They were very thoroughly Silver Age, but Magen's presents some very cool pseudoscientific explanations for various of Superman's powers, as well as describing young Clark's discovery and mastery of those powers in some really good flashbacks. The names are The Last Son of Krypton and Miracle Monday. The latter is of some current relevance because that's where Magen first introduced the Kristen Wells Superwoman character that has been alluded to in recent story arcs. He later wrote her into a comic where her costume was very similar to that of the current Lucy Lane Superwoman. After a very long dry spell away from comics, mostly at any rate, while I was in grad school through the 1990s, it was Greg Rucka's novelization of No Man's Land that brought me back. Although I said, okay, I'm just going to start picking up one Batman title. You know how it goes. The habit grew and grew and grew until my most recent order was submitted at 30 items from the August solicitations. Sure, I know that's nothing compared to what y'all are ordering each month, but I've come to the conclusion you must each be independently wealthy. A poor professor at a small southern university is not going to be ordering that many comics each month. In any case, to this day, although I bought all the way back to the end of No Man's Land, Rucka's prose is my only knowledge of that particular story arc. But that novel is great. I have to say a couple of good words about Greg Cox's novelizations of Infinite Crisis and 52. Like any good novelization of another medium, they make you notice things about the story that you might have overlooked otherwise. At least I know that happened in my case. The main drawback with 52 is that, for the sake of space, Cox had to focus on only a few of the story arcs that were going. If I recall correctly, The Question and Montoya were in, as was Black Adam and Isis. But the Lost in Space saga with Adam Strange, Coriander, and Animal Man didn't make the cut. Nor did, and this I did miss, Ralph Dibny's quest to bring Sue back. I see on Amazon.com that his novel of Countdown is scheduled to appear on July 7th. I'm hoping that that same necessity of excising material for the sake of space will actually improve that story. And since he's writing with full knowledge of where the story was supposed to be going, he will actually connect those dots into a true countdown to Final Crisis. I've heard no word as to whether he will ultimately follow up with a Final Crisis novel itself, however. There are more, of course. The whole DC Universe line that Helltown was part of. Another series several years ago under the banner Justice League of America. All the movie adaptations and so forth. Elliot Maggin also did a wonderful novelization of the Kingdom Come story that's enhanced with Alex Ross's paintings, throughout it. But this call has gone way longer than I expected. I just want to end by saying what I've said in various postings and emails. I thoroughly enjoy your podcast and the way you present yourselves. The pure joy you find in the DC Universe comes through clearly and infectiously. I know it sure enhances my enjoyment of this once solitary hobby of mine. Oh, and at y'all's instigation I recently attended my first con. A little thing, but hopefully it will grow. The first, hopefully, NOLA Comiccon in New Orleans, Louisiana. And I'm planning to go to Dallas Comic-Con at the end of July. Thanks for all that y'all do. And as I almost invariably sign off my message board postings, cheers, the Prof.
Dude, you rock. He wanted me to point out that the Dallas Comic-Con is not at the end of July. It's August 15th to the 16th. And it's www.sci-fiexpo.com /DCC/Dallas. Hang on.
Dallas?
Oh, let's just go with that. It's funny.
Dallas. You're doing a Sean Connery impersonation.
Let's try that again.
Okay.
It's www.sci-fiexpo.com /DCC/Dallas Comiccon.html, which I put in the show notes anyway.
Right.
So why I'm even doing this, it doesn't even make any sense. Like, how many people are sitting there writing this down when they know, oh, geez, I can just stop and, like, copy and paste it. But but I felt the need to go back through and correct it anyway. Thank you, actually. It's for the comments about the show, especially. That was really kind of you. You get us. That's the whole point of this. It's actually my genuine feeling, and I know Jim's as well, is we talked about spending money before. We talked about the fact the price increase. I'm still here because I'm enjoying this. And if I stopped, I'm done. I don't need to spend my money this way. I do it because they're giving me enjoyment. When he said 30 titles, I'm like, well, you're not that far off from what I'm spending. It's a lot of books. Yeah. So you're doing quite well for yourself. So, I don't know how many titles you think I'm getting, but you're not that far off from me, dude. We're pretty close. But anyway, as far as books I've read, I've got all of the DC Universe books, the ones that were under that banner, the paperback books that came out. I just haven't had a chance to honestly sit down and read them. With how many titles I'm reading right now, there was something I stockpiled, to be perfectly honest. What I have read, novel-wise, I did read the Last Son of Krypton one that you mentioned, the Kevin J. Anderson book, which was really good. It was the one that did the story of Jor-El and Lara leading up to that whole situation. That's a great book I can recommend for anybody that's a Superman fan. I've read the Wolfman Crisis novel, which was really good. And I agree with him that a lot of these novelizations expand on the stories. And it was a great telling from the Flash's perspective of what happened in the Crisis book. So it was well worth purchasing and reading. And I read from Andrew Vosh, Batman the Ultimate Evil, which was a Batman comic dealing with basically the concept of child abuse, which is a lot of what Vosh's titles deal with. It was actually a child slave ring that he got involved in. So it was a very serious take on it. So it was a great way to show that these characters, just like we've seen in the comics, can deal with very serious prose issues and deal with those controversial issues in a way that respects the subject matter. It's a great book. I haven't read a ton of them because I read so many comics. A lot of times, I guess I've avoided a lot of the adaptations. I tend to follow like comic creators that are writers. I'll tend to follow them to their novels. Like I'll read the work of Neil Gaiman, for example, like that. His non-comic work stuff that was specifically created as prose novels. But you've got me interested in reading a number of the ones that you mentioned just because of your take on them. Like the Countdown novel, I've actually been interested in seeing what they do with that.
Yeah.
To see what that different take looks like. Because that would be interesting to see if they tighten up certain things on there in a way that would be more satisfying to people maybe who didn't like Countdown. Because I liked Countdown, but I'm not against... I will say the ending of it detracted... Not from the... I liked the overall story, but my big gripe was it didn't connect. Yeah. So there's no two ways about that. So I would like to see if it did connect, and they give me a satisfying ending to that connects with it. But... that's interesting stuff. Thank you for sharing that. No, we have not done a lot on the novels just because I think, with doing so much comic reading, it's very hard to find in the time for comic-related novels. A lot of my novel reading is stuff outside of that on purpose because I want to read something different. I'm reading a lot of... I've got an iPod. They've got the Kindle reader. Now, it's Amazon's Kindle. You've seen that reader that's on there? They have an iPod app where you can download a Kindle reader, and so I've got novels on my iPod.
Oh, cool.
They're full-blown novels, and they're, the regular releases. But it's nice for me because it basically automatically bookmarks for you, so you continue reading right where you left off. So, like, I'm reading Doohickey by Stephen King, which it's been taking me forever to read because I keep having to take breaks because of working on stuff for the show. But I will get, like, long stretches where I can get into reading it. And Stephen King's books are tomes, usually, in a good way. I really enjoy that. But I'm reading that, and my next one I'm going to jump after that to some Terry Brooks, Shannara stuff.
Oh, yeah. Terry Brooks is a good writer.
Yeah, I didn't know you read Terry Brooks.
I've read some stuff, yeah.
Okay. Just the Shannara stuff, or did you read the Magic Kingdom of Land?
It was some of the sci-fi, fantasy type stuff.
Okay.
To be honest, I don't even remember what the name of the it was a series, but I remembered it was done by.
Cool. Yeah, I love Terry Brooks. He's a really good author. He's done some of the. He did one of the Star Wars film novelizations, I believe.
That's probably the title I read. Probably the Star Wars things.
Okay. But good author there. So I don't know. I mean, you've got me interested in reading some of them, though. I especially like the original work. I wanted to read that JSA Ragnarok, which was never published. I'm hoping that gets published. That was a book that I really wanted to read that it didn't get around to being published. So I'm hoping that comes back, and eventually, I know it's done. The author finished it. It's just a matter of the publisher. Something happened with the publisher, and that book was never published. And that was one that I was really excited to pick up and read right away. Then there was a Superman one I'm forgetting about. I'm forgetting the title of it at the moment. There was one that was recently released that took place before the original Action Comics appearance of Superman. And it was kind of a prequel to that. And I'm forgetting the name of it at the moment. But I read that book as well.
Oh, cool.
We are Crystal Men from Mercury. We have no quarrel with you.
Oh, God. We have no quarrel with you. Well, buddy, I got a problem with you, man.
I love those Filmation cartoons, so I took little snippets from them. Jim, our next episode, we are going to be doing All Speeding Bullets. We're going to try to get back in less than a week with that one, because you and I are already prepared for that one. It's just a matter of we'll find a night. Hopefully we can get together and start chatting about some Speeding Bullets, but if that doesn't work out, we'll be back Sunday at the latest with it. What we're going to do is... every other episode, we're going to do Long Halloween until we get finished with it, assuming that it's going to take the same amount of time, and continue to have listener commentary and another segment on that episode as well. But this was fun. It was great. Thank you for all the listener participation. We really appreciate it. Our sponsors for this episode are DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Adventure Comics #1, special discount, and it has a co-feature in it. Regularly $3.99, 75% off, only 99 cents, and the variant is available for $8. Absolute Superman for Tomorrow hardcover. If you want to get the Absolute, it's $75 regularly, 47% off, only $39.75. The trade paperbacks are both $14.99 each regularly, 47% off, only $7.94 a piece. So you can get Volume 1 and Volume 2 for about close to that $14.99 price point. Ragingcontest@gmail.com is if you want to join us on any of these contests for the future. But that's InStockTrades and DCBService.com, and they've been supporting us. That 47% off discount, normally they're 37% off. They give us an additional 10% to support the show listeners. So take advantage of that if you don't have that book and you want to join us. We're going to be recording that at the end of June and airing that in July. It's going to be in a similar format to what we're doing right now here with Long Halloween. So I got a clue for our next one, because our next In Stock Trades book of the month after For Tomorrow, it's the July book. It's going to be chosen by us. One of the main characters shares a name with one of TV's Hardy Boys. So I'll leave it with that for right now. And we'll do another clue, see if somebody guesses it, what the one's going to be. So one of the main characters. You know what the book is already, so you can't guess. I told you what the book is.
Oh, yeah, of course.
I did. I told you today.
You didn't tell me.
Yes, I did.
No, you didn't.
Oh, my gosh. When I tell you after this, you're going to go...
Okay.
That's what the book is? You don't listen to me. All right, toots. Anyway, that's DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. Thank you for supporting us with that. I want to remind everyone about the Hero Initiative. HeroInitiative.org for more info. We have a handy-dandy link on RagingBullets.com. You're still trying to figure it out. What is it? We have a handy-dandy link on RagingBullets.com. Just the cost of a comic to support comic creators. And I want to remind everyone about RagingBullets.com. Listener-produced columns, Where's What Not Nows, DC release dates, show news, and more. We're always looking for participations, and like I said, that's RagingContest@gmail.com. Our show voicemail line is 1-440-388-4434. That's 1-440-388-4434, or drnorge on Skype. And we love having your participation in the show. We'd love to have you on this week for more commentary from the listeners. So we will see everybody next week.
Bye.
I'll tell you when we get off here what we're doing for July. Well, it's actually air in August, but that'll be our next book of the month.
Oh, of course. Okay.
Now you remember.
Now I remember the conversation. Okay. This should be fun.
Yeah.